hurts you, Raven. I don't care if it hurts you, Tommy, because I promised the world that tonight the truth would be told. Shut up. What are you talking about? I'll drop you right now. Huh? Tommy, you can blast me all you want, Mr. Hardcore, because if you can't take the truth, you ain't hardcore. All those nights, Tommy Dreamer, when we were driving down the road, sucking down cold beers, and you were crying, franchise, why won't Beulah take the test? Why can't I see the test? It's not because of any other reason, but she was not pregnant.
Hello, my name is Bob Bamber and welcome to the Wrestling 20 Years Ago podcast. We're going back in the time machine to April of 1996 for Volume 3 of this month's show. Volume 1 is your WWF show looking at In Your House. Volume 2 is your WCW show looking at all things WCW. No pay-per-view this month. We've got a lot of TV to cover. We're here for Volume 3. We're looking at ECW and Hostile City Showdown. I'm being joined firstly by Kieran Mitchell. Kieran, hello.
Hello, Bob. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. And Delmio.
Hi Bob, nice to be back in the land of Philadelphia.
No problem at all. Del kicks off with the news.
Yep, first up Bob, ECW produced what's very likely the first lesbian angle in all of professional wrestling this month, revealing Beulah McGillicuddy had been cheating on Tommy Dreamer with none other than Kimona Iwanalea. The angle also revealed Beulah's pregnancy to be a hoax and ended with the two women kissing before Tommy kissed them both. The angle took place at the Hostile City Showdown event, and that was on April 20th. The main event that immediately followed the angle saw Raven retain his ECW title over the franchise Shane Douglas.
Raven won the match after using a loaded boot, a gimmick based on real-life foot problems relating to misaligned bones that may require surgery. This has played itself out on television with Raven limping through main event matches and even having a doctor saying he shouldn't wrestle anymore. His program with Douglas seems to be over for now, with an angle at the end of Hostile City Showdown moving Douglas into a feud with Too Cold Scorpio.
And Hostile City Showdown featured another excellent match between Sabu and Rob Van Dam. Otherwise, it was an evening pretty much dominated by arena-wide brawls. We did see Taz defeat WCW's Devin Storm. Dangerous Devin seems to apparently be done with WCW. Apparently he's not worked enough dates. And Primetime Brian Lee, formerly the Underfaker, he defeated Tommy Dreamer thanks to help from the Bruise Brothers. Lee smashed a steel chair and a cinder block onto Dreamer's crotch at the end of the match. There also wins for Axel Rotten, Mikey Whipwreck and the team of Too Cold Scorpio and the Bruise Brothers.
Another big angle on the show featured a pair of pull-apart brawls between the Gangsters and the Eliminators, in a storyline being promoted as one of the most violent in the promotion's history. Each of the brawls involved one team calling out the other before a lengthy battle was ended by the ECW locker room. On the final TV of the month, the story was progressed further by the Gangsters tagging the Eliminators' belts with spray paint. That show concluded with the Eliminators attacking the Gangsters. They sprayed them with spray paint, marking them with an X.
And lastly, just in case we didn't have enough already, we've got a new member of the Dudley clan this month. It's a almost preacher-like character based off apparently Samuel L. Jackson's character Jules in Pulp Fiction. He's going to be called Devon Dudley. Well, Devon and Bubba did team on the Hostile City Showdown in a no contest. JT Smith was ruled out of the show after Devon hit him so hard with a steel chair in New York, his ears were still ringing the following week. Not day, but week. Also, the Bruise Brothers were suspended for 3 weeks after, believe it or not, throwing a chair deliberately into the crowd following the match and hitting a fan. Something Rob Van Dam also managed to do, although his was by accident. And finally, it said that there's no rush to get ECW onto pay-per-view. Paul Heyman was recently quoted as saying he wants to do it when the time is right.
And perhaps the biggest news of all this month, not that it's specifically a news story, was that there was an actual tag team match on ECW TV. Like an actual tag team match. We'll come to that in a bit. So we've got a few weeks of Hardcore TV to go through first, and then we'll move on to Hostile City Showdown. We open up on April the 2nd with a promo from Damien Kane. He gets drowned out by shut the fuck up chants. Kane says the bad crew let him down, so he's declaring himself the godfather of Extreme. The fans are now chanting asshole at him. He's hosting a sit-in until he gets an opponent. El Puerto Ricano comes out and Kane kicks his ass. We get an arena-wide "We Want Sandman" chant. Kane disposes of Ricano, then out comes Mikey Whipwreck. Mikey puts him away with a Frankie Mikey from the top. Steve Richards is out with some actual surgery to an injury to his orbital bone. Replacing him alongside the Blue Meanie is Stone Cold Chad Austin. They're facing the Gangsters. The Gangsters beat the piss out of the pair. New Jack finishes the job with a flying splash from the top onto a chair. Do you motherfuckers think this is entertainment? You go back and talk to that punk bitch and ask him if he's being entertained. New Jack then challenges the Eliminators to a tag title match. We get an Eliminators squash. Saturn accepts the challenge. New Jack and Mustafa storm out and clear the ring with the aid of a nightstick, and the brawl goes into the crowd. Mustafa pile drives Cronus on the stage. Later he eats a total elimination in the same place as the Eliminators take hold, beating down New Jack 2-on-1 in the middle of the ring. They sandwich New Jack vertically between two tables, take the tables together, then hit the total elimination on New Jack, which was quite the spot. Masaka gets help to the back. Joey Styles says the next time these two teams reconvene, they may not be able to air it. Dale, we're going to be talking about this a lot during the month, so I will leave your focus specifically on the total elimination sandwiched between two tables. I thought that was tremendous.
They're quite good at a visual in Philadelphia. It's been a while since I've been on the show. The roster's a bit different these days with departures, but they can still pull off these kind of 5-second spots that just you don't see them anywhere else. Whether it's kind of people getting hung for a balcony, whether it's kind of Tommy Dreamer and getting 10 cane shots, and the Gangsters just delivered another one. It's almost hard to describe with it, being able to kind of see the visual attached to it, but they've certainly come on leaps and bounds for the last time I've seen them, and it's just kind of getting gaffer tape, getting electric tape and tying tables onto people and then hitting the total elimination. It puts a move that's already over to the nines just up another notch.
Kieran?
It's easily, it's already, for me, Bob, it's already the best finisher in the promotion. And then to see them actually, I always mention with ECW shows, there's always a sense of one-upmanship. And I never ever thought I'd see that finisher actually, like Del alluded to, actually they've one-upped themselves. I think that's an absolutely fantastic spot, that. Yeah. And sort of similar to that, the Bruise Brothers, I'm sure we'll mention it later, I actually quite enjoy, was it in the TV? I can't quite remember, but they have a spot where they use the two chairs with the double boot as well. Not quite as good, but you can sort of see maybe that with the roster going a certain way, they're trying to, do other things with the wrestlers.
Trying to innovate with what they've got. I think the spot you're referring to is going to come up in the Tommy Dreamer Primetime Brian Lee match. We'll come to that during our Hostile City Showdown review. Styles announces the departure of Brian Pillman, but he says he will be given the opportunity, if he chooses to return to face Shane Douglas in the ring. Obviously, this was all filmed and aired before Pillman's accident. You can hear more about that in Volume 2 of this month's show.
My name is Bill Alfonso, and you're stuttering. Bubba's had enough.
Nobody gives a rat's ass what your name is.
True enough.
My name is
That was despicable.
Let's have it your way. Let's wrestle, you son of a bitch.
Next up is Bubba Ray Dudley against Tarz. Alfonso mocks Bubba's speech impediment. Bubba tries to introduce himself, stutters, then Tarz letters him with a slap. Bubba then says, "Okay, Tarz, let's have it your way. Let's wrestle, you son of a bitch." This match is surprisingly even, with Bubba getting cut off by Alfonso at one stage. Bubba misses a splash, Tarz hits a T-bone Tarz flex, then locks in the Tarz mission, and that will do that. Other members of the Dudley clan run off Tarz, then Big Dick pops up Alfonso for a press slam. Alfonso, during all of this, is still blowing his whistle. Tarz takes Big Dick out by the knee and starts attacking him before putting him in a leg lock. Sign Guy climbs in the ring with a chair, falls over, and then gets hit with it. The ring is a devastation of Dudleys. Tarz says it doesn't matter how big they are, they're all going to end up just another victim. The fans chant Sabu as the segment ends. We're going to discuss more about Tarz when we get to his match with Devon Storm on the show. During the end of show montage, we get a doctor showing x-rays of Raven's foot, screwed and stapled together. The doc recommends he doesn't wrestle anymore, but it looks like he will. We start April the 9th with Raven coming out to the ring, flanked by the Bruise Brothers, Kimono Wanalea, and foot and ankle specialist Dr. Mark Allen. Allen describes Raven's foot as, quote, looking like Humpty Dumpty. Sandman walks out during the segment. He starts talking to the doctor, but Raven gets a cheap shot in. The Bruise Brothers go after Sandman. Out comes Douglas, but he gets beaten up too. Then Dreamer, and we start a three-way brawl. Dreamer puts Raven in the figure four. Raven's seen to submit, not that happened. Then out came Brian Lee, fake Undertaker, as Dale mentioned, and he started beating up Dreamer. We cut backstage to Raven in the locker room. They're teasing a six-man tag against Sandman, Dreamer and Douglas. Brian Lee wants in to replace Raven. Even Kimona does. She will do anything for him. Eventually we get Raven limping out to the ring for a fight. The heels make their way out to the ring. The lights go out, and the three faces appear high in different parts of the ECW arena, basically on Douglas and the Eagles' Nest, and Dreamer and Sandman were in raised balconies at other parts of the place. Steve Richards then goes up by Sandman and nails him with a chair hard. He hit him so hard the chair broke, and a brawl gets underway. Raven stays in the ring as the carnage unravels outside. Meanie is involved too at this stage. In the ring, Dreamer hits a neck breaker on one of the Bruise Brothers while having a steel chair wrapped around his neck. And perhaps for the first time in 2 years in the ECW arena, an actual bona fide tag team match threatens to break out. Dreamer gets thrown hard onto a table, but not through it. Raven sees to that shoulder, charging him through it. I swear that this has turned into a literal tag match with people actually tagging in and out and other people actually standing on the apron. Tommy Dreamer then gets the first hot tag in ECW history. Shane Douglas unloads on the Bruise Brothers. The fans whip up a "We Want Sandman" chant. Sandman, for what it's worth, actually just seems to have disappeared. Sandman returns. This goes on for an absolute age, this match, about 25 minutes. Sandman tags in and cleans house with a cane. The match breaks down into an arena-wide brawl. We get by the bleachers. Douglas jumps down towards the concession stand, but the table he intended to land on appeared to break. They start brawling with a steel door. Yes, a steel door. That gets thrown into the ring. I say yes, steel doors, and that's what they were calling it anyway. That door gets up into the ring, and Dreamer pile drives Raven onto it. He gets a two before one of the Harris brothers breaks up the pin. Sandman drops a leg drop from the top on Raven. That's probably in the middle of Sandman's leg drops in terms of how good it looks. But pulls out of the pin in an attempt to save Dreamer from the Bruise Brothers, who are about to crotch him on the turnbuckle. The Bruise Brothers go after Sandman. Douglas doesn't save Sandman, instead takes the pin on Raven. They win the match, but the heels dominate the post-match until Beulah jumps on Raven's shoulders. The Harris brothers hold up Beulah. Even Kimona tries to stop Raven, but Raven punches her. Dreamer then cleans house with a chair and hugs Beulah. Kieran, talk me through this.
I was just begging them to get to the ring, not because I thought they were going to have like a tag match, but it was like sometimes the camera would miss stuff and I was just getting a bit bored. And then, like you said, Bob, it sort of, for want of a better phrase, it sort of hits its stride where we actually get like some good in-ring stuff. Then we get the brawl outside. It was just a bit too long. The ending was a bit meh. But for So take off the beginning of it, I actually really enjoyed it, to be fair.
No?
Slightly different for Kieran. I think the finish was pretty decent. One of the highlights about ECW is they can take these matches that for a live audience are maybe drawn out, but then when you watch it in hardcore TV on a Tuesday night, it kind of gets smart editing. There's quick cuts. Get Joey Styles there. I thought the start of it when they were introducing the three good guys, I suppose, but it is ECW, was pretty innovative. But as Kieran said, it dragged on, and it's like when you get people in a roster that we've seen before, like a Benoit, a Guerrero, or a Malenko, or people like this, you can quite easily sit and watch half an hour. I mean, bell to bell, this must have been about that, and it was just when you see a half-hour match, you've kind of got some kind of misgivings about it. When you see that it's got the fucking Sandman in it, you kind of wonder. But I don't know. It filled an episode of Hardcore TV, but there was some good stuff in it.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad match. It was probably too long, but I think if you'd have said to me you're going to get a tag team match involving these 6 guys that's going to go 25 minutes, I probably would have expected something a lot worse. But yeah, the action was okay. I mean, Kieran, I guess the bigger question is, it's the flip side of the whole every tag team match is an arena-wide brawl. Why were they observing tags?
I honestly, I think it's because maybe, I mean, they're actually just, along with what we said about those innovative finishes, maybe there's a bit more of a back to basic approach. But I don't know so much.
But I think you've got to, you owe a duty for a promotion like ECW that prides himself on detail level. If you're going to have a tag team match in a main event, we are at the stage now where you owe a duty to the people that watch your show to explain it. And that's a weird situation to be in. Yeah. Me expecting rationale behind an actual tag match, but we've gone so long without one, or it feels like it. It didn't make any sense. Why was Douglas waiting for a tag from Dreamer to be able to help him out?
I mean, that goes to, that was going to be my next point, was just following on what Dell said about them being, the quote unquote good guys. It's like, I kind of knew already that there was going to be, it's ECW, so there's shenanigans, whatever. But there's no way Douglas is going to go along with it. So, although they did go to like sort of straight tag team stuff, it was almost stupid to do it in a way. It's kind of hard to process what they were thinking, really.
No?
I don't think I can really disagree with Mr. Mitchell there. It kind of goes so far up the way of kind of how ECW works. It kind of shows up kind of like the opposite of WCW almost, when how many months do we spend giving out about the rules because they enforce the rules and then they mess the rules up. This was like the opposite. It's like there usually is no rules, but then everybody's just being, it was strange, as you say, without it being kind of explained in the setup, this is going to be, I don't know, if anybody's seen breaking a rule, they're out of the building, something like that. Or it just didn't. It is strange, as you say, try to explain an actual match with an actual rule and an actual tag. I don't know. It was strange for me.
And it's not even like they were observed within the same match. It started out as a brawl. We formed a tag match. It broke down. We reformed the tag match, and then it broke down. Kieran, I still can't really make any sense of this.
No, but I'm just thinking, just maybe for a bit of context, all they needed to do was maybe have like a common goal promo between Douglas, Sandman and Dreamer. Whether people buy it or not is down to the wrestlers to get it over, because that's their job. But all it needed for me was just to give it some context. So just have, Douglas, Sandman and Dreamer get together and say to each other, look lads, I don't like you, I hate your guts, you're a bit of a twat, but maybe if we get together we can sort of try and sort Raven and his flock out or whatever. Just something to give it a bit of meaning, because otherwise I sort of knew what was going to happen and it didn't really make much sense. Maybe then.
And then, Del, we come to the finish. I quite liked it. I think it was one of those ideas that was so complicated on paper, pulling it off was kind of like a Hail Mary, trying to get it right. But it's one of those things where I'll let them fill in the gaps and I'll let them take credit for perhaps a slightly more solid story than they actually presented. One in the sense that they were making a big deal out of Sandman saving Dreamer, which in itself is quite a big jump, but equally it wasn't like the Bruise Brothers had Dreamer in a massively compromising situation. No, I would not want to be slid bollock first towards a turnbuckle, nor would I want my legs to be rammed into them. Fair enough. But it's not like that's a spot we don't see on most ECW shows. It didn't seem all that, warranting of Sandman giving up a winning position. But Del, can we overlook that, Del, and give them credit for the story they told?
I think there's several unwritten rules as part of this promotion, and I think there's several unwritten rules as part of this project as well. Before we go with stuff based on the heritage that's there. We always say it when we're reviewing pay-per-views, they get reviewed different, whether it's a WrestleMania or an In Your House, if it's a Starrcade or a Clash of the Champions. With ECW, they kind of build their own legacy based on what they can get away with. You'll see Sandman in kind of pretty rotten matches, but with the entrance, it doesn't really matter. You'll see previously the likes of a Cactus Jack, now Mankind in WWF, where he'll get away with things in promos that'll explain maybe some of the matches that aren't quite as good. When this company can deliver what it does, I think you certainly get a bit of leeway in that, and I'm willing to go with it. As I say, the finish, I don't know whether it merited the kind of 23, 24 minutes that went before it, but I'm willing to give them a bye.
Kieran?
Yeah, it just felt like too much of a stretch. On the flip side, I sort of know that this team isn't going to get on or whatever. But by the same token, I kind of liked seeing Sandman do it, but it was just too much of a stretch. But it didn't take away. It doesn't take away from the match for me. The bits that I did like, I really liked in this match. It was just a bit too long. Like I said, it didn't really make much sense, and it was just a bit of a stretch at the end. And like you said, they needed to get Dreamer into, if they were going to do that, they needed to put Dreamer in sort of a life or death type scenario. I don't really know how you'd do it, but it just seemed a bit of a stretch, that was all.
Yeah, I mean, you almost would have not that it could have been the Eliminators, but you almost would have wanted Dreamer in a situation where he's about to get the total elimination finisher, that kind of thing, and move that built up to that level. I guess my bigger problem was that they never really explained why winning this match really mattered. Like, I think for that kind of angle to work, you need a match where there's something on the line. It can't just be a match. We spent 18 months having Dreamer not being able to pin Raven. Now, okay, there's always a reason why. But equally, by this point, like, shouldn't you, if the results really matter, shouldn't Dreamer have just given up? We're so far into it. I guess my bigger problem wasn't necessarily the story they told. It was more that I don't know what Sandman was giving up. Like, what did Sandman, Dreamer and Douglas achieve by winning, even via Douglas, that made Sandman's sacrifice worthwhile beforehand? If they'd have lost after Sandman's sacrifice, what would losing have really mattered beyond just the prize of losing just for the sake of a match? Maybe we're doing too much on just a match on a show, but they tried to start a story here. They got about 70% of the way there. We open up on April the 16th on Hardcore TV with Kenny Albert interviewing Shane Douglas in Madison Square Garden. Douglas says the ECW arena is more famous than MSG. It's the new mecca of professional wrestling. I told Shawn Michaels and the rest of the clique to come to the ECW arena and I'd set them straight. Douglas says he's come to New York to find the WWF wrestlers. We get highlights from the New York show. We see the debut of Devon Dudley. He leathers JT Smith over the head with a chair, breaking it in the process. He also leathers Little Guido with a shot too. JT gets gobby on the mic afterwards and then gets attacked again. Mikey Whipwreck sends Sabu from the top rope, crashing through a table on the floor. We get a repeat of Sabu's ludicrous flip dive spot over the guardrail. Once again, he goes crashing through a vacant table. Sabu eventually picks up the win with a Hurricane Rana from the top. Taz walks to the ring, flanked by bodyguards for a quote-unquote shoot fight with Chris Jericho. Bel Alfonso gets handcuffed to Todd Gordon to stop him interfering. Alfonso gets freed after a Taz trainer grabs the keys off of a fallen ref. Alfonso hits Jericho with a chair and Jericho loses by submission. That was a bit shit. Gordon tries to break up the ref, but the martial artist hits him with a chair and then puts Gordon in the Taz mission. Del, I think you might look at this concept, you might even listen to this concept and think it might be quite good, but I kind of felt like they had a decent idea and then tried to make it about 4 times more complicated than it should have been.
I seen the results before I seen the tape. I was actually quite excited about it. I've not seen a lot of this Jericho fella, but Taz in a shoot fight environment, I was all in. I started watching the highlights on Hardcore TV and there's fucking suplexes in it. It's like, come on mate, come on. This is a smart crowd. They read their sheets. They've been watching for years. They know what the story is.
They probably watch UFC. They probably know what a shoot fight looks like.
Yep. And have you ever noticed in the UFC that you get elevation above the head with the victim? Not. Why's that? Because the fucking victim jumps in a suplex. Come on. It's basic stuff. And it's like, you get a takedown, you just grab them and pull them to the mat. You don't lift them over your head. And it's like, oh, come on. At that point, I'm out.
Kieran?
Why even bother saying the word shoot? What's the? Again, you just think if you're gonna do something different, just stick with it. I just don't think that this was maybe.
I just don't think you should present a shoot fight on a wrestling show.
No,
because
just going against.
What else are we watching? If this is a real fight, what's everything else?
I hadn't even thought of it. There you go, Bob. That encompasses everything.
If this is an actual fight, what else are we watching? Why even bother with the rest of the show? Like, shouldn't they all be shoot fights?
Like you said, Bob, by a professional wrestling promotion presenting a shoot fight, and especially ECW, aren't they then sort of saying all these guys getting hit with like food mixers and steel doors and fridges? Aren't they sort of saying, well, no, that's a load of crap because this is a shoot fight? I don't really understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those things that the rationale might be, well, that we've got a smart enough crowd to know what wrestling's about, so we can call it a shoot fight and they'll think it's different. But it's like, nobody believes this is a shoot fight. Like, nobody does. I don't know. All a bit weird. We get a promo from the Dudleys. Devon says, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, and thou shalt not fuck with the Dudleys. The Eliminators put off a brutal squash before calling out the Gangsters. The Gangsters get on top in a brief battle before the locker room empties to break it up. That won't be the last time that happens this month. Lou Jack levels a cop and both Gangsters end up getting cuffed. We get to the main event, the same 3-way from last month without the Gangsters who are in jail. One of the headhunters, it's a moonsault to Soundman on the table, except he overshoots and the table doesn't break. The Gangsters are back despite still being cuffed. Out come the Eliminators next, who lay waste to the Gangsters with a chair and a total elimination on Mustafa. That hit finishes them, and the clip finishes with them holding X signs up to the camera. Don't know why I call that the main event. We've got another match. We see the entrance of Richards, Raven and the Blue Meanie. They're mimicking Diesel and Shawn Michaels. Well, Richards and Meanie are anyway. Richards is wearing an ice hockey style mask. A woman jumps in the ring and makes out with Meanie and covers his chest in whipped cream before kissing him. No, I did not make that sentence up. Raven breaks it up, angry at the woman. He then gestures towards Kimono before slapping her to the mat. Then Richards starts laying the boots in. They're saying Kimono wants revenge and is going to cost Raven his title at Hostile City Showdown. We then see the Bruise Brothers and Brian Lee against Dreamer and the Pitbulls. The brawl spills quickly into the street. Lee gets a super bomb for his troubles. Raven breaks it up by hitting Dreamer with a chair, then a DDT. Dreamer takes a double drop kick with chairs held up to both sides of his face. Sorry, Kieran, you were right. That was on Hardcore TV, not the show. And that's enough for the win. They lay Raven on a table and Dreamer volunteers to be super bombed through it. through Raven, through the table, which I actually thought was brilliant. Although ECW, for a company that likes to innovate, that does seem a little bit similar to what the Public Enemy have been doing. I actually don't know when this was taped, so they might be alright actually. We get the closing montage after a promo from Douglas. He unveils Kimona, who says she's going to expose Raven, and we will move on to Hostile City Showdown 1996. Del, you can kick us off with the results.
Yep, first up, Bob, we've got El Puerto Ricano, and he was fighting Supernova, and he ended in a no contest. It was your opener. Mikey Whipwreck defeated Billy Black. The Dudley Boys, which was Bubba Ray and Devon, they were obviously accompanied with Dances with Dudley, Singai Dudley, Chubby and Big Dick. They fought the Pitbulls to a no contest. Pitbull 1 and 2 with Francine. Taz with Bill Alfonso defeated Devin Storm. Axel Rotten beat Little Guido with JT Smith. Tuchel Scorpio and the Sandman. The Sandman now accompanied with Missy Hyatt. They beat the Bruise Brothers, which was Ron and Don Harris. Brian Lee defeated Tommy Dreamer. Sabu, match of the night, defeated Rob Bam Dam. And Raven defended his ECW World Heavyweight Championship against Shane Douglas. Raven with Stevie Richards and the Blue Meanie. Douglas with Kimona.
I will just preempt what we reviewed tonight by saying that the copy of the tape we're reviewing didn't have the Mikey Whipwreck match on it, so we won't be covering that. Kieran, what do you think of this show?
I kind of alluded to it before. I think I've reached a bit of a plateau, if for want of a better word, with ECW. It just felt like, it might have been my imagination, but this felt like too many brawls. There's obviously one stand-up match which Del has called out already, which was the Sabu Van Dam match. Everything else, it just there's a couple of no contests, there's a count out. It just felt too many brawls. So, sort of overall, I'm not too big on it, but we'll get into it.
Del.
Kind of two-edged sword for me, Bob. I totally agree with Kieran. Very brawl heavy, very, almost not really non-finish, but kind of lazy booking at the end of matches. But then if you look back to last year, just off the top of my head, I think Public Enemy were in it, no longer there, 911. I think you'd Ron Simmons, Terry Funk, what was there? Guerrero and Malenko, I think, was in it as well. I mean, you're talking a roster that's very, very different this year, as I said at the start. You could almost say the more things change, the more they stay the same with all the brawls that was in this. But as I say, we're going to come on to the semi-main with Sabu and Rob Van Dam. It could be very much worse if it wasn't for that match. Yeah,
I may have just been watching ECW for too long, but this show felt... I feel like they're short of ideas. That was the overriding thought on a show that actually includes two really one very, very good match and one match in Tarz and Devon Storm that's probably even a little bit of a surprise how good it ended up being. But I don't know whether it's a lack of talent. I don't know whether it's just a lack of established names in terms of guys that we talked about ECW turnover. Del mentioned it there. We talked about talent turnover. It kind of feels like they're just short of something right now, and so many arena-wide brawls. I mean, maybe we look at how it's presented on TV. Maybe if they don't show a couple of them on TV, all of a sudden you can go, well, Bob, the arena-wide brawls are for the fans. I kind of feel like the fans probably want some more in-ring action. I don't want to speak for the ECW crowd. I can imagine when you're there for the first time and there's action going on around you, it's probably a lot of fun. But equally, there are a lot of guys that go to a lot of those shows. And I can imagine that probably after the fourth or fifth time, they might be going, yeah, can we get some more action in that thing where all the action's meant to be? That was my overriding thought. And again, maybe I've just been watching so much ECW, it's kind of fell a bit flat. Go on, Kieran.
No, it's a similar thing. I think, I agree with Del. I think for me, especially me personally, it's a lot to do with the roster. It's almost sort of 75, getting up to 80% of the problem with this show is, sort of encompassed with that idea that the roster is just so different. There's almost no, I don't want to say the word, there's no wrestling, because it just sounds a bit, bit snooty to say, because, I have praised ECW for their brawls before, but there just feels, like you said, Bob, lack of ideas. There's innovation here and there, but overall, I just think the roster is just too thin.
Yeah, a lack of diversity, I think, is probably the biggest issue. Alright, you can't get a production line of Benoits and Guerreros, but when they had those guys around and Too Cold Scorpio and people like that, there was more wrestling on it. So when you did the brawls, it stood out. And the other thing that comes to mind, that really comes to mind, and we'll come to it in a minute, this Raven and Dreamer feud ain't going anywhere fast. I mean, they're trying to go long with this. I think the idea is they're going to try and get to their first pay-per-view with it, whenever that may be. You're going to need more than this, but we'll come to that when we get to
Maybe a cheeky shoot fight in a 6-man tag that goes half an hour, Bob.
Maybe.
The last time we was here, something happened to me that ain't never been happened before in my life. I got my ass kicked. Well, Eliminators, if that's the way you want to play, if you want to come out here and think you gonna embarrass me on national TV, if you think that me and Mustafa took a licking and ain't gonna keep ticking, then son, I got some news for you. You see, where I come from, I was brought up like this. If you get your ass kicked, you don't take it like a man and get up and shake the man's hand. You go home, regroup, and find a way to take the out. When I got back in Atlanta, I went home, and I looked at my old lady, and she looked at me. My old lady looked at me, and she said, I'm going to tell you what the problem is. She said, I don't feel sorry for you because you and Mustafa soft. She said, now you done got soft. She said, gone are the days of big down in the ground until they can't walk no more. She said, now you worried about what people think about you. And I thought about it. I looked at all the tapes. I looked at all the film. I looked at everything that's been going on with me and Mustafa, and she was right. Well, Eliminators ain't changed about the gangsters. I don't think. But I'm going to tell you something. We going to get your ass, and we going to get it good. So if you punk listening, favor and bring your asses on out here, because boy, we ready to fight. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at?
We open with a New Jack promo. He says the last time he was here, he got his ass kicked. But if the Eliminators think that it's going to happen again, they've got it wrong. If you get your ass kicked, you don't take it like a man. You go home, regroup, and find a way to take the fuckers out. I think he said that anyway. I was lip reading while it was being bleeped. When I got back to Atlanta, I went home. I looked at my old lady and she said, I don't feel sorry for you because you and Mustafa are fucking soft. Now you're worried about what people think about you. We're going to get your ass and we're going to kick your ass. His mum stopped talking at this point.
Fucking awesome. Get
your asses out of here because we're ready to fight. And here they come. It's the Eliminators. They brawl quickly before it breaks the ringside. Cronus misses with a big dive. New Jack slams Saturn over the guardrail before dropping in a punch into the crowd. Saturn hits him with a chair. New Jack returns the favour. Saturn cracks a beer over New Jack's head. Cronus levels Mustafa with a big boot in the ring, and the locker room empties, finally, to break these four up. Joey Styles says it wasn't an assigned matchup. If we let them go, we'll lose our insurance. As if ECW has got any fucking insurance. Kieran, New Jack promo, opening brawl, good start.
Yeah, I like said before, I think New Jack's, I think he's fantastic. This promo had me like half scared, half in stitches. I don't know what to make of the fella because, I mean, I can sort of laugh at the TV, but I don't think I'd laugh in his face, because at some points he comes across like a comedian, and at other points he comes across as very real. I thought the brawl was really good. It sort of went on a bit too long, but I'm really enjoying this feud. So it's a good start.
Del?
I love them. They were just kind of coming in the last time I was on this. There was the stuff with the public enemy who always bring a bit of comedy to what Kieran was saying there about you're able to laugh with them. New Jack's different. And with a company like this, you want things that are different, especially what we alluded to in the overview before we go into the rundown. We kind of seen a lot of the same old. It kind of puts me a bit in mind of Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, when he's just kind of incredibly insane but funny with it, and you know that you could laugh with him, and then the next thing you know, it's just going to turn on a dime, and it could do anything. And I think they're such a good team, and you've just got Mustafa just lurking about in the background, and I don't know, man, it's like a ghetto George and Lenny. It's mental. I love them. I think they're brilliant.
Yeah, I'll mention it now. I remember I like the dynamic between the Eliminators and the Gangsters, in that both teams have one guy that talks and one guy that stays silent. That's quite a nice little dynamic. It's the whole thing where you're in a bar, you're not scared by the guy running his mouth, you're scared by the guy stood behind him and doesn't say anything. New Jack's great. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not the hardest thing in the world to swear in a promo, to swear a lot in a promo, and it probably adds a lot of emphasis, but I don't get the sense New Jack's swearing because he thinks it improves his promo ability. I think he's swearing just because that's what he fucking does. I think that's just New Jack. I think that's part of who he is. And maybe if it is part of the character that he's put together, then he's very believable at it. At this point in this bit on this show, with this program, with these two teams feuding, I thought it was pretty good. But we're going to find out in a couple of minutes where I think it probably fell down. We move on to El Puerto Ricaño versus Supernova. Supernova hip tosses Ricaño to the outside, then hits a senton from the top to Ricaño on the floor. Back in the ring, Ricaño gets back on the offense with a drop kick, but Nova drives him into the corner, then flips him into a Tiger Bomb for a 2. The crowd chant Power Ranger at Nova, who's dressed in blue and silver. Ricaño hits an Asai moonsault from the apron to the outside. Nova ducks a clothesline, hits a super kick before the Eliminators run out. Both hit belly to bellies. The one on Nova looked particularly dangerous. Nova then eats a total elimination. Not much to the match. We may cover it when we come back in a sec. Saturn grabs the mic, a quick swear-word-laden promo, and they call out the Gangsters. New Jack and Mustafa run out. New Jack's armed with a garbage can and launches it into the ring. We get another brawl. Usual stuff. They brawl around the exit. Back into the ring, then up by the entrance. Once again, this time after an absolute ace, the locker room empties and they try to separate them. JT Smith gets on the mic and wants to know why they can't just get along. Devon hits Little Guido with a chair and chases Smith to the back. The Bad Crew flip Ricaño over the top. Hack Myers unloads on both of them, and the segment ends. Del, this is where the show started to fall awry a bit for me.
Which, after a 2-minute opener is always a wee bit worrying. I don't know how bad the relationship is these days with Paulie and 911, because this is the matches that the big man was there for. Dare I say, if the Philly faithful thought he was still in the books, then they would be chanting his name, because this is the kind of match that they come out for. I do really like the start, as you say, with the Gangsters and the Eliminators. I think they've got a good dynamic between them. Thank God they were there, because these ECW shows, they can often tend to have, I don't know whether it's just the tape traders that we've got, Bob, but they seem to kind of start with these matches that kind of run a couple of minutes and then it's just like non-finish, and then you get onto the good stuff. I don't know much else to say. I think the only thing that's going to let this down even more, it's maybe more in hindsight, we think it fell off a cliff here. This brawl really stood out at the time, but then you got onto that much later on in the show. It just didn't kind of stand out come the end of it.
Kieran?
Yeah, I'd have much preferred have a brawl going on, but don't take away from the guys trying to have a match, because what those two guys were doing was was okay for the time they had. I don't know why we couldn't have just had. Why they had to have the brawl in the same place they just had the next one. Maybe they could have been cutting between the match and the brawl that was in like the back or something. Do you know what I mean? And Joey hears something. I'm getting news of a brawl between, and they cut to it and then cut back and just let the match go 5 minutes, not 2 minutes, maybe, because we don't need brawl. You know, the two tag teams have a brawl, have a 2 minute match, and then the same two tag teams have another brawl. Like it was just bizarre.
Yeah, it didn't work. If you're going to do the brawl again, particularly so soon in the show, you could have ended the show with the brawl, a second one, and it would have been, okay, fair enough. If you're going to do it so soon, you've got to have a better plan than this. You've got to have a better, you know, the second brawl needs to end in something more significant. You know, it's the old thing when we talk about ECW, you know, Kieran, you mentioned it earlier about one-upping themselves. Yep. Once you've done 2 choke slams, you can't come out the following show and have 911 do 2 choke slams because he's already done that. You know, you can't do the opening segment brawl, have a locker room empty and the segment end with a pull apart, and then 5 minutes later come back out, have the match end, and then have another arena wide brawl, and then after an absolute age the locker room empties and it just stops. And I thought that is a problem. I thought the bigger problem was, what the fuck did we have JT Smith and Ricanio and Hack Myers, that you're trying to build this as a big blood feud, and you end the segment with just a load of comedy. Kieran, I didn't get it.
No, it doesn't make sense. And I'd love to hear your two takes on why do you think the one reason why they went brawl, stupid 2 minute match, brawl?
It's just that I felt they wanted to make it stand out more than your average tag team feud. An average tag team feud would have 1 brawl during a show. We're going to have 2. That was my impression. I haven't read anything about that. I haven't said it. That was the impression I got watching it, was they wanted to make this feud stand out above all the previous ones.
Then I would have done not to big myself up, but I would have done what I said. Then I would have littered the show throughout. You could have the gangsters and the eliminators brawling throughout the entire show.
Well, you could have done that, but I think you were right. I think the logical answer would have been the match starts with Ricanio and Supernova, and then 3 minutes in, we just get New Jack Mustafa and the eliminators brawling out from the back. And it's like we got them backstage and we couldn't contain them. And then you end the show with like 2 of them getting taken away in a car because they're like, we can't keep these guys in the same building. What happened afterwards? That's kind of the other thing. They had a pull apart, and then like, did we get them on the rest of the show? We must have done. But like, what happened after that? That's the confusing thing. Actually, did we get them on the rest of the show? No, we didn't. Like,
I don't think so.
Where did they go? Like, if you're going to have maybe have Paul Heyman and Todd Gordon like trying to calm down the eliminators and saying, look, we'll pay you, just go. Just go. You don't have to wrestle on this show. Just go home. We can't do this tonight. Explain why. Dan, it just felt like this segment cut off 2 or 3 minutes too soon. I felt like we were missing the key bit of this second brawl that we never got. Pretty
much. We got Act 1 and Act 2 and 3 was just kind of, the third act was just missing. I'm going to defend it on paper. The delivery, I think, could have been managed a bit better, but the way that I looked at it is New Jack comes out at the start, calls them out, eliminators come out, they need split up. Technically, you could argue that makes the gangsters look stronger because they had the balls to come out and challenge the eliminators. But then with the second pull apart, that's instigated by the eliminators. So, I mean, I think on paper it makes sense because they're trying to balance these two teams as equals. There is belts involved, but this is more than that. I think you want to make these two look equally strong, and I think that is a way to do it when it ends in a pull apart. But as you say, when we're getting this like 5-10 minutes into a video, what next? It's like, it's not even the one-upmanship argument.
No.
It's, you want to leave the audience wanting more, obviously, but I don't know, you don't want to kind of, not to take away from Big Dick Dudley, but you don't want to blow your load too soon.
Indeed, you don't. I will at least say this. We'll come to it obviously at the end of the TV, but by the end of the month, it felt like they'd not filled in. It felt like they'd achieved in about 5 minutes on Hardcore TV what they wanted to achieve with this in terms of making the feud feel a bit more above the ordinary, but I don't think they got it here. Anyway, we move on. Here's Bubba Ray Dudley. Francine stood in the opposite corner, and Bubba Ray likes what he sees. They bleep out the entire bit, but based on what we're in the torch, Bubba basically says to her that he wants a blowjob, which pops the crowd no end. Not sure quite why they bleep that, but oh well. Devon isn't happy. Number one, say your fucking name without stuttering before calling the fans imbeciles for encouraging him. He then says the pit bulls don't scare him. He calls them morons and then says there are 3 rules. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, and thou shalt not fuck with the Dudleys. Move on next, it's Pitbulls 1 and 2 with Francine versus the Dudleys, Devon and Bubba Ray with the Dudley clan. The action spills straight to the outside into the crowd. A chair gets swung. Devon hits Pitbull 2 hard with a chair shot to the head. Bubba Ray takes a can to the face, which breaks his glasses. Devon gets thrown over the guardrail into the R-way. We head off towards the Eagle's Nest. Pitbull 1 climbs up the ladder to the nest, comes off it and hits Devon with a chair as he lands. Bubba hits a standing splash off the bleachers. Pitbull 1 wraps a chair around his neck. We get back in the ring. Devon goes for a sunset flip and almost gets the 3. One of the Dudley clan in the wheelchair gets clotheslined off it, then Francine goes after him. The Dudley gets up, so Francine knees him in the bollocks. Devon gets driven face first into a chair. They set up Bubba Ray for a super bomb, then hit it. They delay going for a cover on Devon Dudley, laying in some horrible looking chair shots to the head, including one for the ref. This, of course, elicits ECW chants from the crowd. Devon sets his eyes on Francine. The Pitbulls then just pick up the ref and give him a super bomb for good measure, and the match just, ends. Kieran, I guess my view on this match probably isn't helped by what's to follow, but I didn't exactly like this match even at the time. No,
again, what I said about the show as an overall is just too many brawls. There's not enough coherence. There's nothing to get you involved in the match aside from some of them chair shots were pretty painful even watch it on telly.
If the story's true about JT Smith being out of action on the show because Devon hit him so hard with a chair the previous week that his ears were still ringing, I'm surprised anyone thought, I know, let's let Devon take a shot to the head with a chair or Devon out. That felt a bit weird.
Yeah, it seems to be sort of go against any sense of reasoning at all as to the very thing that he's just done to someone. Well, let's let him hit everyone in the match with a chair, or every opponent in the head with a chair, because my God, did he hit them with that chair? That's my big takeaway was those chair shots. Other than that, I didn't really enjoy the match at all, to be honest.
No.
Devon Dudley's like fucking Babe Ruth. It's I don't know how much license they're getting. He's going to get through this roster pretty sharpish, I think.
That's his route to the title. In amongst winning shoot fights, he's giving people shoot injuries.
Yeah, he's just got to win it by default, I think. I really like this Dudley clan. I think there's a lot of legs in this, literally, because there's 10 of them, I think.
But one of them's in a wheelchair, so...
Well, Chubby's still, it's probably just a case that he's a bit kind of chubby to be walking out the aisle every night. But, I don't know, we talk about strength of gimmicks and the obvious kind of comparisons Taker and the Fed. You kind of get these gimmicks and then when it's in a stable, when there's so many of them and it's so eclectic a group, it's like you can't help but smile. But then when the match happens and there's not really much happens in it, we've seen Mecanio and Nova in a no contest, we've seen this in a no contest. Unfortunately, because of our poor choice of tape traders, we missed Mikey. I don't think he would have saved this, but I don't know. It's just there's really not not much to report. And when you're talking about a match that must have went about 7-8 minutes anyway, then you want to be having at least something to talk about. And all we've really got is the Dudley gimmick.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's a lot during this show. I think this match would have benefited from having more of it inside the ring. Particularly as, we haven't seen a lot of Devon, admittedly, but more in-ring action would give Devon less license to swing chairs, in theory, which would have been a benefit. And the Pitbulls are one of those teams like that they wrestle such a hard style. I almost kind of think you limit what they can do by sending them into the crowd, in the sense that they're so good in the ring. Showcase them in the ring. And yeah, this is one of those finishes. It comes back to what I said earlier about the six man on the TV. When the finishes don't mean much in matches that have nothing on them, when a match like this can just end for no reason, it kind of means that when you try and tell a story with Douglas and with Sandman and with Dreamer, because the match finishes, you're telling your audience they don't mean all that much. It means that when Sandman sacrifices himself for the sake of a match finish, or when Douglas doesn't, it doesn't mean as much. Now, admittedly, this came afterwards, but that's the message you're sending across here when you do a finish like this. It's like, yeah, it's just a match. Wrestler gets bored, kicks the ref in the face. There's no repercussions because we're hardcore. That's it. Like, that's the gimmick. And it's like, fine.
dub.
Yeah,
dub.
Exactly. That's what the fans started chanting when they wiped out the ref, was because the match didn't matter. That was kind of the impression I got. We're here to brawl around the fans. We're not here to put on matches that matter. That's what it felt like. That was probably one of the biggest problems I had with this show, was that if the matches between the competitors matter, the finishes should matter. And when it's all about brawling around the ring and not really trying to do, when it's all that same homogenous style, the finishes mean less. And when they mean less, the matches mean less. Anyway. Out comes Bill Alfonso in a black shirt with Tarz on the pocket and an orange bow tie. Tarz written on the pocket and an orange bow tie. Tarz now has an entourage too. Out comes another Power Ranger. This time it's Dangerous Devon Storm, who wrestled a pretty good match against Conan a couple of months back on Nitro. Bill Alfonso has questions for all the fans in the arena. He pulls out a Philadelphia Flyers t-shirt, or jersey, before saying that his Tampa Bay beat them. He says they even stole Taz's colours. He stamps on the shirt and throws it away. A fan throws it back. Next up, it's Tarz with Bill Alfonso versus Dangerous Devon Storm. Tarz hits a hip toss. He seems to be a bit more respectful than usual. He hits a snapmare, then goes for an armbar. Alfonso's whistle is annoying as usual. Tarz stops in a leapfrog and then hits a T-bone Tarzplex. Storm hits a springboard kick and does one of the most lethal baseball slides I've ever seen that drove Tarz hard into the guardrail. Storm sits Tarz on a chair on the outside, jumps back in the ring, does a flip dive over the top and takes Tarz out on the ground. Alfonso turns to the camera and says, he got in one lucky move and he thinks he's an ECW superstar. With that, Storm hits a moonsault for a 2 and a leg drop. Storm goes to the top of the chair, goes for a moonsault with it, but Tarz moves. Tarz goes to the outside and grabs the table. Storm, who's been doing Sabu-like shit all match, does a running leg drop, flying off of a chair into the corner. Tarz moves, then flips him over the top. Storm bounces off the table, which slides out from underneath him and hits the floor hard. That did not look nice at all. The ref makes the count and Tarz wins by count out. And just for the record, Alfonso has been blowing the whistle the entire fucking match. Tarz drops to the outside and chokes Storm out. Anyway, Tarz grabs the mic. He calls Storm a Sabu wannabe. I'll give you a little credit, you son of a bitch. At least you showed up, unlike the king. With that, Tarz mocks Sabu's pose. Dale, what do you think of this?
I really like this pair of Tarz and Fonzie. Sorry, Bill Alfonso, if I'm not allowed to call him Fonzie. The whistle adds to it. The keeping with the costume but changing it to Tarz colours suits them. Tarz is believable. Devon Storm I was actually pretty impressed with. As you say, the baseball slide was in there, the couple of bumps that looked pretty brutal in it. It's a pretty decent match. I mean, I don't know whether it's just because we actually came close to an actual finish. I mean, we were getting close to a decisive win, but it was a pretty decent match. I mean, again, there wasn't really much to it, but the full the full Tarz act, whether it's with this new kind of team of guys coming out with him, or if it's with Fonzie and that fucking whistle, I really like them as a set-up, but as I say, I was pretty impressed with this Devon Storm. I thought it was a pretty decent match. Kieran?
Yeah, the same. I thought it was a pretty decent match. It was nothing special, but again, what Dale said, I like the Taz thing. I like the fact that he's got a stable. They look good. Taz is believable. You know, Alfonso's really fucking annoying, which is good for the gimmick. And I like everything about it. I'm keen to see where this whole Taz thing and Team Taz thing goes, to be honest. Devon Storm didn't do himself a disservice. I thought he was alright. He was very Sabu-like, but I suppose that's the point of it. But, it was alright, this match.
Yeah, like I said in the WCW part, specifically talking about match finishes, when you do so much of what I would perceive to be a negative, so much, in that case match finishes, in this case arena-wide brawls, when you revert back to the norm, it kind of works a lot better than it should have. This match on another card would have been a match, but it ended up being the second best match on the card just because there wasn't pretty much competition beyond the obvious. That being said, like the flip side is, and I don't know whether this is a deliberate choice, I don't know whether this is just the reality of the situation. The flip side is that because you're doing so many arena-wide brawls, maybe there's an emphasis on, God, we need a match in the middle of all this out of Taz. But Kieran, I don't know whether I'd be having Taz in such even matches. It doesn't. Taz winning by count-out, I mean, okay, it was a fairly definitive count-out, and it was a brutal-looking finish, and I think the idea was that he was meant to go through the table rather than fall off it. But it didn't quite work for me, I guess is what I'm getting at.
No, I sort of see what you mean. You want sort of Taz to steamroller his opponents at this point?
I want someone else in this match, and I want Taz winning a different match somewhere else on the show.
Okay. Yeah, Yeah, I can't. Yeah.
Del?
I agree.
Definitive as always, there for Kieran. I can't argue with you. Do you see Devon Storm 6 months, 12 months down the line, kind of been up the card, maybe with a mid-card title? No. So I don't really see why you would. I don't know whether
am I the only one that quite likes Devon Storm?
It was alright. I mean, I just can't see him.
Yeah.
He's not gonna, I can't see his name in lights. Let's put it that way.
Dangerous Devon Storm does sound like a cartoon character.
Pretty much in like a B-roll one. Not really something that's prime time, but as you say, he's done a job, but again, I think I'm just a wee bit more on your side when you're saying about Taz. You can have, not maybe steamrolling them, but I don't know, it seemed a bit of a strange fit. There's the full allusion to Sabu, which was good. I don't know, it was certainly a match of the night so far, but as you say, it's not got a lot of competition.
Yeah, there is also the thing about Sabu. Taz keeps saying, keep chanting his name, he's not coming. He's on this show. Like, that's a pretty big problem with all of that. I mean, okay, I feel like Taz is being proven to be correct by the fact that Sabu's not running out, so it's not like Taz is looking for Sabu. He's goading him out. But it's like, this is a more traditional babyface heel match, matchup than most of the things on ECW. Where is Sabu? Like, I know he doesn't talk, but it's like, Sabu's at these shows now. There was that thing, just around when he came back when Taz turned, where Sabu was kind of on some shows and off others. He's on most shows so far this year. Why isn't he out there? Like, a guy's ragging you off. Like, I know you're Sabu. I know you're not this most, stereotypical babyface. But a guy's running his mouth about you. You're meant to be the good guy in one way, shape or form. We'll see what happens at the end of his match with RVD that kind of shows that. Where are you? And
I don't think it's even down to wrestling psychology and wrestling logic, Bob. I think the most worrying thing for me is I already alluded back to last year when we were talking about last year's Hostile City Showdown card. Sabu used to come out in a gurney. He used to be tied and he used to have 911 as protection. Not protection for him, but protection for the opponent, because he was so inane and insane that he could not be held back. So as you say, where is he?
Do you think he's been? Do you think he's maybe he can't be bothered, Del, or they're trying to water it down?
That'd be a pretty shit storyline if the angle is, Sabu just can't be bothered.
Aye, we've got the underlying.
That's not the payoff to this storyline.
I don't know. I think there's a story that you could easily tell, but they just didn't do it. And as we say when we come on to the match later on, dare I say, if you're going to turn this into Tarz and Sabu and then just leave Van Damme out it, then it probably takes away for the shine of that match as well. But again, it's kind of similar to what we've seen with the gangsters and the Eliminators at the top of the show. It's like, where's it going? We're going to see Raven and Stevie Richards, Raven and Tommy Dreamer over God knows how many more months. We've already seen it for 18. That where's it going? It's like,
yeah, you don't want them to sort of drag out another feud. You don't want Can we just have sort of like 3-4 month feuds, And then
well, I mean, there you've got the main 3 feuds in this show, and they've been going on, and they don't really show any signs of kind of going anywhere fast, but also not ending, which is a bit of a worry.
But why doesn't Sabu sort of stick his head out of the curtain during a Taz match, trying to put Taz off, like with Del said? Why doesn't he sort of turn up?
Why does he just run out there and beat the fuck out of him? You know what I mean?
or subtle like that. Yeah.
Because they've already used their pull-apart brawl card twice in the show, probably.
Well, that's true. And the other reason is, the bigger problem is that they just don't want to do Sabu and Tarz now. But it's like, you can't do the whole, let's do a program without having the guys together. I mean, I know WCW have done it to an extent, but you can't do the whole program, let's build a feud around 2 guys that don't appear on TV at the same time while they're both on the same fucking card. That's not how this works. They need to do a better job with that, I think. Unless I'm missing something obvious. I don't think I am. Anyway, move on. It's Little Guido with JT Smith versus Axel Rotten. Rotten mocks Guido's short stature while walking out. Smith combs Guido's hair. Smith says that they're the FBI now, the full-blooded Italians. Quite a nice touch, that. Guido runs at Rotten, who backflips him. Guido's legs hit the top rope on the way down, which don't look fun at all. Fans chant, JT's got a boyfriend. So Guido hits a sunset flip for a 2, then an arm drag. Guido goes for a crossbody. Axel catches him and just dumps him over the top rope. Axel grabs a pie and rams it in Guido's face. Rotten then takes a chair and hits him over the head. Guido goes for a load of pins, but only gets a load of 2s. Guido goes for an arm bar. Axel blocks it. JT Smith is giving it large at ringside. Guido goes for a top rope leg drop, but misses it and hits hard. Rotten lays in some big lefts and then runs him over with a clothesline. Ron hits a powerbomb into a flapjack-type manoeuvre and picks up the win. After the match, JT Smith gets on the mic and tries to apologise to Axel, talking down to him. Rotten goes to the outside and eventually just gets pissed off and walks to the back. Smith tries to talk Guido down. He's got a bloody annoying voice. He then starts singing some Frank Sinatra. Kieran.
Bored off me tits. There's literally nothing here, Bob. I'm sorry, I haven't got much to say at all. The singing was all right, was it? No?
No.
Right? No. Right, I haven't got anything, Bob. I hated it. Whatever.
Del.
Move on.
Fuck off, kid. I'd love JT Smith. I don't know what it is, man. I just love this film.
You had to go me and my Val Puccio thing.
Honestly, man, I think I have got the same thing.
No.
Why in this full-blooded Italian faction? I don't know, but JT I think's doing so good, and I don't know what it is. And as we said at the top, Bob, with this apparent injury with the chair shot for the Black Babe Ruth earlier on, it's such a good story, I think, with JT. It's like he's been accident prone for how many months now? He's taken that many kind of dodgy bumps that he's concussed, and now he thinks he's he's as Italian as Joey Tribbiani. It's so good. And I don't know what it is, but I just think this full act's brilliant. Plus Axel Rotten was in there, and I've got a bit of a soft spot for him.
It might have been the third best match on the card, in the sense that it was probably the third of three that stayed predominantly around ringside and didn't go into the fans. That's probably where my positives for this match end. JT Smith's not that. JT Smith isn't a character that warrants having a character brought in off the back of him, which doesn't help. Axel Rotten hasn't done anything of any note since Ian buggered off, which doesn't help. Just three guys I don't think people care about. That's the biggest problem. That up and down might be the biggest problem on this show, was that last year they had guys that either you cared about more or guys that were just better. Like, that's the thing. Even when it was, Eddie Guerrero, who not long debuted, you watched Eddie Guerrero for 5 minutes and you were a fan. You don't watch, Axel Rotten for 5 minutes and become a fan. That's where we're at. Anyway, we'll move on. It's the Sandman. I'm not staying any longer on that. We got too long into the show already. The Sandman and Too Cold Scorpio with Missy Hyatt versus the Bruise Brothers, Ron and Don Harris. What is Too Cold Scorpio wearing? Blue flared trousers with the thighs cut out.
It was like beefcakes or tights that he used to wear at WrestleMania.
I've got it in my notes. I said beefcake. I just actually wrote that down.
the booty man in ECW. He's not 239, he's a slim, chiseled and ripped 238. Styles bemoans them debating who will start the match, saying within a minute they'll be all over the arena. I actually had in my notes that I thought that might be a precursor to them not going all over the arena. I wish I was right. Scorpio and Harris lock up. Scorpio gets a leapfrog in. Sandman gets a shot from the corner, and this match threatens to break down. Still, tag rules are reserved. Harris A chokes Scorpio on the bottom rope. Scorpio goes for a crossbody, but Harris A catches him. Obviously, it's not Harris A, it's just one or the other. Scorpio rolls through before Harris just bats him out of the air while he goes for a drop kick. A couple of body slams, and the Harris brothers hit a double team flapjack. Scorpio hits the head scissors after doing a handspring off of the top. The Harris brother lands quite awkwardly. We then repeat the spot with the other Harris brother. This time he just launches Scorpio over the top to the outside. Sandman gets involved and gets beaten down by the brothers. They start lashing him. Missy Hyatt looks oddly happy. Sandman rallies for pouring beer down Missy's dress, then motorboating her. Scorpio hits a double diving clothesline from the top. We finally start an arena-wide brawl. They just can't resist. Sandman collapses into the guardrail, into the fans. Scorpio goes to the top and hits a Mikey Whipwreck-style diving crossbody into the fans, taking out both brothers and Sandman. Back in the ring, Scorpio hits a moonsault. The ref rattles off a very quick pin, and that's enough for that. That was all a bit weird. I've got in my notes. Dale, what do you think?
I think I'm still going to come down for JT. There really wasn't much here. I think you'd be struggling, particularly in a tag division, to find a better look than Ron and Don Harris. They're huge, they're identical. It's just like, you see they two coming over a hill when you run, and it's a bit strange when you see a team with as much kind of, or as little in common really with Too Cold and Sandman, and then when you add in Missy into the situation, it's a strange one for them to be winning that when you've got these two, no pun intended, bruisers in the ring. Again, it kind of went a bit arena happy for me, but I don't know, there's not really much you can say, to be honest, Bob.
Kieran?
No, again, like with the previous, there's just, you just know where it's going to go, and it's just so annoying because they could do so much more. But again, descends into the arena-wide brawl thing, and then I just lose interest, and I was just bored. Didn't like it at all.
Kieran, what's the worst arena-wide brawl you've seen in ECW? Dale, I'll ask you the same question.
I think the problem for me is we've seen that many these days, it's hard to distinguish between them.
That's the problem. There is no such thing as a bad arena-wide brawl, and there is no such thing as a good arena-wide brawl. They're all the same.
Do you know what? I've just when I first started watching ECW, Bob, I come back to one thing. I can't remember which one of you said it was about. You know, when you've seen it. I think it was you, Bob. When you see it for the first couple of times, it's all something new. So when I first started watching ECW, I was like, I remember saying on the shows, I Dale, I wonder what. You know, if they're going to use a toaster this week, or they're going to use like, a blender. And I was like quite involved. I was quite, what weapons am I going to see this week? And now I'm just like, fucking hell's teeth, another one. And I just can't. It's just boring.
They're all the same. And I don't know, because maybe, I assume arena-wide brawls are fun if you're there, and if you're a new fan to ECW, as you say, Kieran, you probably enjoy them quite a lot because you don't see them very often. But if you're in this group of people like us, who've been watching ECW for a while now, who can't go to the arena, it's all a bit the same. And as I say, that's the big thing. There is all arena-wide brawls are exactly the same. They are no better to watch or no worse to watch than the previous one. They will be no better or worse than the next. They're all the same. And so you just, forgive me for saying, but you kind of just ignore it. It kind of just becomes, okay, another arena-wide brawl. And I know that featured quite late on into my notes, but that would just be kind of because after that, there's only so much you can write about an arena-wide brawl from the sense of writing up notes for this kind of format. It just, and the other thing was, I talk about match finishes. Del, what was the quick pin for? That was like, I talk about the end of matches and matches mattering and pinfalls mattering and results mattering. The ref does a quick pin. The sort of babyface team, as sort of babyface as you can kind of get in ECW, just celebrate the victory. The heels weren't mad. There was no repercussions. There was no follow-up. It was just a finish. And it was like, I'm just kind of starting to get used to the idea that these finishes don't really matter.
Pretty much. And when you hear me earlier on saying I was literally quite excited about Taz almost getting a decisive win in Devon Storm, and that was a count out. Here we've got a pinfall finish, and they still can't carry it off. Why? Is it overexposure of the arenas? Is it a lack of passion or involvement in the competitors? I don't know. It's just so far. I mean, it's just got 3 out of 10 wrote all over it. The show. We say it a lot, more commonly with WCW, dare I say, when stuff is so bad that it's almost laughable and you enjoy it and you get a bit of fun at it. There's only one thing that's worse than bad wrestling, and it's boring wrestling. Yeah. And it's when you're not involved in it emotionally, you don't have the investment, as you say, with the issues with finishes actually mattering. It's very hard to get involved.
Yeah, I kind of come back to, not that we ever, we do the kind of score ratings at the end of shows just for the hell of something, just for, kind of reference almost. Last month's show, Rory doing, I think, his second ECW review and Steve doing their first, both gave it, I think, a 9 out of 10. And I remember kind of thinking, there's no way this is a 9 out of 10 show, and that's not
3 months.
I totally understand where they're coming from. Understand where they're coming from.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is that I think if you watch this stuff for the first time out, the first couple of times, it's mind blowing. It's like, wow, this is fun.
Because it's so different to probably what the other shows that they've been doing. If they've come from like a WCW, where they're watching Kevin and Dave Sullivan having a scrap. Then the next show they're reviewing is an ECW one, then I can kind of see where they're coming from.
Yeah. Do you want to see somebody getting hit with a high heel, or do you want to see them getting hit with a toaster?
It's a very good point. Anyway, we move on to prime time. Brian Lee versus Tommy Dreamer. Dreamer goes straight for a low blow, then hits a jawbreaker with a chair on his shoulder. That was quite nice. Dreamer goes for a baseball slide. Lee moves and hits him with a chair. wins the crowd again. They brawl around towards the entranceway and then towards the Eagle's Nest. Dreamer hits a nice running bulldog. Dreamer jumps off the camera position with a splash. Lee then throws him off the platform onto the bleachers. We eventually return to the ring. Dreamer ducks a clothesline and Lee wipes out the ref. Dreamer hits the DDT, but the Bruise Brothers come out. Lee holds up a chair to both sides of Dreamer's head, and we do get here as well. Lee holds up the chair, a chair either side of Dreamer's head, and the Bruise Brothers hit a double big kick. Of course, Dreamer kicks out the resulting pin, hits a DDT again, but the ref gets taken out again, and the Bruise Brothers are back. They place a cinder block on Dreamer's nuts. Lee hits that with a steel chair, and that's enough for the win. Kieran.
God. It's like, if we'd have just had, again, we keep going back to it, but if we just, and it seems to be the overriding thing for the show, if we just had a bit more in the ring, and forget the bloody cinder block to the bollocks spot. just don't do it, because you've just, and then
I thought that was the best part of the match.
And then, but the thing is, what I would have preferred is cinder block to the old Joy department, and then do the double chair shot, double foot thing, and he doesn't kick out. Do that, because it means so much more then, because it's like, well, they've wrecked his chances of having little dreamers, and now they're going to scramble his brains for him, and he loses. But no, he has to kick out of that, and then they do the cinder block. So there's some really good spots in there. It just felt like it was just a bit thrown together, whereas if more thought was put into it, I think it would have been a lot better.
I wasn't actually that low on this show before we start reviewing it, but God, I mean, it wasn't.
Sorry, Bob.
No.
I won't depress you, mate.
No. Like, I'm down here with you. Like, if it wasn't for Sabu and Rob Van Dam, this might have been one of the worst shows we've ever covered. That's kind of where I'm at now. Go on, Del.
Gives a new meaning to the phrase cock block, but apart
well
from
done. Well done.
Well, I'll bow to you there, Del. I need
thanks,
to get
mate.
some tips off you.
Apart from that, there's not much to say. I mean, I think we might even try this in the coming months, Bob. I might send you.
I thought you were going to say.
Well, I'm not going to be caught blocking each other, I promise you. Something that we might try is I might just send you a match review with no names in it, and then just put the names in it, and we'll just use the same match review for every fight, because it's touching on that. So far, thankfully we know what's coming up next, but as you say, the one thing that stood out was the cinder block. It's like, it's something that actually made this different to anything else, and apart from that, it's the same old.
Yeah, it's taking the Screwjob finish to a whole nother level of what the fuck's going on? Like, you know, when the ref gets leveled twice, when he comes round the first time, doesn't he end the match? Like, I know ECW is kind of a promotion where, you know, ref bumps are a bit more fluid than, say, in WCW and WWF. It's not so much for a storyline trope. A lot of the times the ref gets involved, whatever. But, like, since, you know, we talk about wrestling matches. ECW is a very good storytelling promotion, but the more we kind of watch it and the more we go through this show, it's like you're telling nice stories, but you're not telling nice stories within matches. Why does, you know, the whole thing about wrestling matches, you've got to get people invested in the finish, because that gets them invested in the match. Otherwise, it's just a fight scene in a movie. It's just a choreographed stunt. You're not invested in the match. You're not invested in what might happen. When the ref gets wiped out and the Bruise Brothers just carrying on attacking, like, I don't think, oh, this is great heat on the heels in this feud against Dreamer. I just kind of go, where's the story? Where's the structure in which this is taking place? Because otherwise this is just a barroom fight. It's nothing more than that. It's meant to be a wrestling match, and yet it doesn't feel like you're telling me the result matters.
It's almost, I've just had this thought, it's almost like, and stick with me here, it's almost like they don't care about the people that are watching it, that aren't at the event itself.
Well, we have to go back to the thing broken record. Not all of this will air on TV. Tape trays are small, etc., etc. To a small chunk of the audience, etc., all of that. And, you know, we are in a fairly unique situation in that I'm guessing as much as ECW's tape training is good, I don't know whether more people are watching it on video than are watching it in the arena, but I would make a wager that it's fairly close. I imagine if you're tape trading, you're probably tape trading TV, but who knows? Who knows? I don't know. But we have to caveat everything, broken record, in that not all of this will air on TV. This is a live event, etc., etc. But you're for a company that prides itself on being a company, a promotion. They're not really a company. For a promotion that prides itself on being so forward thinking and being so innovative and so edgy, I would feel like regardless of whether they're having a good time, I feel like ECW used to hold itself to higher standards when it came to storytelling. It kind of felt like they were phoning it in, and regardless of whether the crowd enjoyed themselves, like people enjoy themselves at circus shows, they enjoy themselves watching movies. This is pro wrestling. It's not about spots, it's about matches. And when you kind of go down this path, the matches mean less. I think you're kind of losing what makes ECW so good, in that they can push the boundaries out with the stories they tell.
Just go back to what got you invested in the first place. For me, it was people you can't replicate these people, I understand that, but you can, that phrase I always go back to, Bob, you accentuate the positives, hide the negatives. You've lost people. I understand that they've lost people, but people like Cactus Jack, who would get you invested just through a promo, you wouldn't need a match. They need more stuff like this, but like you said, it just seems like they're phoning it in and they're just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
I'll say it now before I forget at the end. This felt like one of the most promo-light months that I can remember from ECW. Watching the TV, and that almost might be the bigger loss, in that they feel so light on talent in 1994 they had Douglas cutting promos every week. They could have fallen back on that if they wanted to. But it just felt like in a few months ago, this would have been Stunning Steve Austin in this spot. It would have been, someone like a Rey Mysterio Jr. or someone like that, someone that would have gone, I'm different. In the end, it was like, for all Tommy Dreamer's strengths, he ain't that good a wrestler. Brian Lee ain't that good a wrestler, and this match weren't that good. I move on next. It's Sabu versus Rob Van Dam. They're saying this match is one fall to a finish, no time limit. What did they say? One fall to a positive finish?
I think they did, actually. I think they said positive.
Did they say that in the main event too? Or am I imagining that?
I never heard that, but I do remember positive finish, which kind of stuck out to me.
Okay, well, maybe I imagine that for the main event. We'll carry on. Sabu shoots for a leg twice. Van Dam evades him. Third time's a charm, and Sabu takes him down. Sabu goes for a clothesline. Van Dam ducks that one and another before leveling him with a big kick. Van Dam hits a forward roll into a splash. Sabu sends him to the outside. Sabu drapes him over the second rope and then drops a guillotine leg drop from the top. That looks strong. Sabu goes for a camel clutch, then a single leg Boston Crab. Sabu does a shoulder roll over Van Dam, but lands on his head. That looked fun. Sabu puts Van Dam on the top rope, then drop kicks into the outside. He follows that with a slingshot somersault plancher. Van Dam jumps onto the guardrail to attempt a moonsault. Sabu just shoves him into the crowd. Sabu sets up a chair in the ring. Sabu runs off the far ropes, jumps off a chair, off of the top rope, and does a big dive into the crowd, taking out Van Dam. Sabu props up a table between the guardrail and the ring. He then goes to the top. Van Dam rolls off, so Sabu just throws himself at him anyway. Sabu attempts to do a running kick off of the table, but slips. That didn't look fun at all. Van Dam hits a flip dive off the apron, wiping out Sabu. Back in the ring, Van Dam hits a springboard leg drop, then a power bomb. He does a surfboard stretch, but Van Dam, selling a broken rib, couldn't support his weight. Van Dam picks Sabu off the top, off his shoulders, but Sabu hits a spike DDT. Sabu does a running jump off the chair. Van Dam jumps off the top rope at the same time and clears him. Van Dam then swings the chair wildly. It bounces off of the ring post and goes flying into the fans. Someone catches it and throws it back. Van Dam then does a running flip dive to the outside, taking out Sabu. They climb to the top. Sabu sets for a suplex, I think, and Van Dam just shoves him off, flying through the table. Sabu gets another table and lays Van Dam on top of it. He gets in the ring. No running involved here. He just does a flip dive over the top. The table doesn't break, so he just goes back into the ring, redoes the spot again, does another flip dive, and this time it works. For a guy who likes going through tables, Sabu could probably do with being a little bit bigger. Sabu does a springboard moonsault off the top into the ring for a 2. Sabu hits Van Dam with a right. Van Dam hits a high angle German suplex with a lovely bridge for a 2. He then goes for the top and just about catches Sabu with a neck breaker on the way down. Van Dam hits a guillotine leg drop on the apron, then a leg drop into the ring for a 2. Van Dam goes for a chair. Sabu does a double knee drop on Van Dam. Sabu puts Van Dam on the top, then does a DDT to the mat. Sabu jumps off the chair onto the top rope, then hits a moonsault back into the ring, and that will wrap it up. Brutal and very, very good. We end the match with Sabu wanting to shake Van Dam's hand. Van Dam walks off and Sabu doesn't look happy. Joey Styles says the match is tainted as a result. Del.
Where's Tarz?
Well, as I said earlier, if Taz's idea is goading out Sabu, he doesn't have to come out when, Taz is calling Sabu out. It's not Taz's responsibility to confront Sabu in this case. I feel like it's Sabu's responsibility to confront Taz.
No, that's a fair point. Anyway, fuck Taz, this was wrestling for a change. Best match of the night, possibly might be one of the matches of the year. I wouldn't maybe go that far at this early stage, but it was decent. It just shows that the simple things work. It's not hard. Don't need to get into a crowd. Don't need to
I wouldn't call this match not hard. They didn't go into the crowd very much, but they did a lot of shit.
Oh, aye. It's not hard kind of booting it. I mean, this was an in-ring match. It worked. This was a match that built to a crescendo. It worked. This was a match where you don't need to go on in the crowd. If you trust the guys that's in there, I don't want to hark back too much to Dean and Eddie last year, but it works. And these two guys, I mean, I don't know whether I'm overstating it. I know Sabu's kind of had his briefery in Atlanta, and I don't think you're going to really hold a guy that looks like Rob Van Dam down for too long. I think these two are just potential world beaters, the two of them. Match was really good. It's the only thing that you're going to take away for this show so far that we've seen. Really good. I don't want to overstate it too much. It might, as I say, just be in the back of the show that we've seen so far up to this, but it just shows that the simple things in wrestling work. A bit of athleticism, a bit of a story, a bit of a character that you care about in both of these guys, and a genuine athletic contest, a good wrestling match, sound bell to bell, and it meant something, Bob. We were talking about it earlier on. Was there a belt in the line? No. Was there any kind of special kind of stipulations coming into it? No. Did either two of them even talk? No. But you get the bit at the end where Van Dam doesn't do the handshake. You've got Sabu out there who's in the middle of this apparent feud with Taz, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the wrestling, and that's why we're here. And just thank fuck it was on this show, because it saved a bit of faith that I've got in this company, and I thought it was very, very, very good.
Kieran?
It was absolutely one of the best, it's easily one of the best things I've seen on any ECW show. It felt like the quintessential ECW match, but done in a way where it's up there with an Eddie and a Dean match. So all those matches that Eddie and Dean had, this felt like two ECW guys having that caliber of match and doing that caliber of match in their way and their style. I also agree with Dale. I had it in my notes. This felt like, because of how the rest of the show was, to me this felt like they could trust these guys to go out and do whatever they wanted to do. Whereas I think what the rest of the shows sort of shows is that maybe they didn't, and they thought everything else had to be a brawl because they really didn't know what these other guys were capable of. They obviously know what they've got with these two, and I think they just said, look guys, we trust you, go out there and just put on a hell of a match. And they did. And I think the trust in these two guys has paid off. You then factor in the ending, like Dale said, you didn't need the promos, we didn't need the belts, we didn't need any like gimmicks, quote unquote, other than them being completely mental. You then factor in that Taz could also come into this situation. I loved the fact that Van Dam didn't shake his hand, because immediately the boos went up. All of a sudden, you've got a story out of nothing, And I think if you then factor, maybe Taz comes into it as well, and there's the three of them between each other, and then maybe that goes on, and maybe then a belt gets involved. I just think this was just, it sets up so much, but on its own as a match, Bob, brilliant.
I feel like we've been negative for about 5 hours on the show. I don't think it's going to be that long. But this was really fucking excellent. I mean, there have been great matches in ECW that almost feel like matches that were imported from another world, in that they were just like, they're just matches. It's almost like a cinema that shows you only American movies, and then all of a sudden it shows you a British film that's completely out of step with everything else. This might be the best ECW match that felt in step with what ECW is putting on, in that it didn't feel like a match where they just put two overseas stars together and just wowed people. It was a match that felt like it pulled from that overseas electric style, and it felt like it pulled from that ECW hardcore brawling style, and it put them together, and we got this. And it didn't feel overly brawly. They got a lot in without it feeling like they were rushing, without it feeling like they were no-selling, without it feeling like they were trying to pack too much in. It had, the balance was almost perfect, and that really helped when we got down the line. There was the right balance of selling. There was the right balance of weapons. There was enough where it felt special, but not too much where you felt drowned out. And above all else, the action was fucking excellent. And that's the big takeaway. This was fantastic. As I said, I think there have been better matches in ECW. I would say that, in that I think if we're gonna take wrestling matches as a whole, there are matches from last year involving guys that were quote unquote imports that I would put on a higher pedestal than this. But Dale, I don't know that quote unquote two of ECW's own, I don't know that's a fair way of describing it. Two guys that perhaps haven't earned notoriety elsewhere before arriving. I don't know there's been a better match in ECW under that criteria.
It's a pretty stiff argument to go against. We see these guys come in, the obvious catalyst that me and you always get back to is the August 94 NWA tournament, when these guys come in and you think, who the hell is this? And then you watch like 10-15 minutes and it's like, yeah, fair play. It's how long they can keep them. For me, we've kind of made a couple of cinematic comparisons in this one, where whether it's Devon coming in as this kind of Jules Winfield character, or if it's you talking about the kind of cinematic aspect of just sitting here and then seeing something different. This was like, as you say, combining it was almost like the kind of Japanese action that you'd see in foreign cinema, but then combining it with storytelling for Americanization. It was like the meeting of two worlds, and you've said that some of these kind of matches are otherworldly. This is, you used a phrase there, quintessentially ECW. I think you said that, I might have made that up, but this is, if you didn't, I'm taking it, this is quintessentially ECW. If somebody used to watch, I don't know, they used to watch Hulk Hogan and WWF in the 1980s, and they missed that. They used to watch Steamboat and Flair in NWA in the 1980s, they missed that. What's ECW? Is it? I don't know what that is. You would sit them down, you would show them that, and it would explain it. You wouldn't need to say anything, you wouldn't need to build up. It's wrestling, but it feels like the 90s. And we've seen so many allusions to that with New York's new generation, with Sting being the man to take WCW into the 90s, which came in like fucking 1994. But this was 90s. This felt real. It felt cool. It felt modern.
Fresh.
It felt, fresh. It's just, this is what we do this shit for. This is why folk go to see wrestling. This is why folk willingly put their bodies in the line for this shit. It's not something fancy. It's not something it's been about as long as the Hills, this shit, but they just dragged it into a new generation. and long may it continue. I hope we see them in this stage. I hope we do see them in a bigger stage someday, but fuck it, let me have them in this smaller arena for a wee while, because I can get used to this, and especially when you see the absolute mountain of shit that this was dragging up and putting on its shoulders. It was just brilliant.
Kieran?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to put it into words about how I actually feel when this match came along in this particular show, because, like I said before, it's everything that this promotion wants to be. It's everything this promotion should be. But why are they so like short-sighted? They've got the potential to have. I mean, Tommy Dreamer and Raven could easily do something like this, but no, we have to have an 18-month feud where. I
don't know that Tommy Dreamer and Raven having this kind of match.
No, they couldn't have, but they could have this type of match. They wouldn't have to do like.
They could have a match that felt like it mattered.
Yes.
I want to see a Tommy Dreamer springboard. That's Ivan. So.
I mean, I wouldn't say they would need to. They would copy all those same spots. But what I mean is that everything about this match that is quintessentially ECW could easily be given to other guys to work on and say, look, this is what ECW is about. Look at the reaction that this match got compared to all the other shit in this show. Right, lads, what we need to do is everyone needs to sort of like not copy this, because, like I said, nobody wants to see Tommy Dreamer doing springboard moonsaults.
Don't give Tommy Dreamer ideas, because he'll try it.
He'll do it from the Eagles Nest. He'll do it from the Eagles Nest or something. But just look at that match and then off you go. That's it.
Yeah. There is one thing I'll say. Starrcade 1993 was a shit show, but the main event stood out more because everything else on the card didn't really matter. I don't think this was planned. In fact, I'd be willing to bet everything I own that it wasn't planned like this. But when everything else on the show is just so forgettable, so boring, you don't half, like, that's the thing. Like, I could have been at this show, analyse everything like I am here and saying, look, people might be enjoying this arena-wide brawl stuff, but it's not particularly innovative. And yet I still think I'd go, but fuck me, like I come up with a positive feeling from this show because of this match. And I kind of feel like at the end of the year, when we're talking about the best matches of the year, or we're talking about ECW in general, we won't mention this show, but we will mention this match. And there might be that. Or maybe I'm just giving them way too much credit for a great match and an otherwise awful show. Who knows?
Are you ready to see history repeat itself? Raven, you've got something that belongs to me. And I've got the woman that is going to testify tonight and rip the lid off of professional wrestling. You see, Raven, the whole time that Beulah was cheating on you with Tommy Dreamer, it seems that Beulah was also cheating on Tommy Dreamer. So not only was Beulah jacking you, she was also jacking Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer was as big a sucker as you were, Raven. She went night after night playing with your head. No pun intended. Playing with Tommy Dreamer's head. All the while, she had both of you wrapped around her finger like big fat suckers. Raven, you, Tommy, because I promised the world that tonight the truth would be told. Shut up. What are you talking about? I'll drop you right now. Huh? Tommy, you can blast me all you want, Mr. Hardcore, because if you can't take the truth, you ain't hardcore. All those nights, Tommy Dreamer, when we were driving down the road, sucking down cold beers, and you were crying, franchise, why won't Beulah take the test? Why can't I see the test? It's not because of any other reason, but she was not pregnant.
Shane Douglas is on the mic. He asks if we're ready to see history repeat itself. He's out here with Kimona. Kieran will be pleased to know they're now just calling her Kimona. Okay. Douglas says when Beulah was cheating on Raven, she was cheating on Tommy too. She went night after night playing with your head. No pun intended. Raven is just chilling in the corner of the ring. Here's Dreamer. He threatens to drop Douglas. Douglas says if he can't talk the truth, then he can't take the truth, then he ain't hardcore. Douglas then says Beulah wasn't pregnant. Who is it? Dreamer asks. It's not a he, Tommy. Kimona grabs the mic. It's me. Out comes Beulah. Steve starts kissing Kimona and they fall onto the mat. Dreamer picks him up by the hair, then says, I'll take them both. I'm hardcore. Before kissing each of them and then both of them at the same time. Kieran.
What, this lesbian? Oh, God. It just, I'm just lost for words with this shit. Because I'm like, I'm begging, here I am when I'm Bob, like, I'm begging for, like, stories. And then when I do get a story, it's like Jerry Springer bollocks. And I just, no. I don't care. I just don't care. I mean, they might be pushing some boundaries here. I don't know how liberal Philadelphia is with this type of thing. I mean, the crowd could have really turned on this. But just for me, nah. Sorry.
Del?
I liked it. Not just from the obvious point of view, but I liked that.
Just let that comment linger.
Yeah. I liked it. It was fucking ridiculous, let's be frank about it, but it worked. And I don't know what it was. I am a Shane Douglas fan. Any time he's in the ring, I like him. I've missed him in Philly. I still have a grudge to bear with the full Federation debacle, but that's past us. He's back. He's king of the mountain, maybe not with the belt, but it worked for me. It was just ECW. It's like they do shit that no one else does. And it is ridiculous sometimes. I mean, you see Cactus Jack sitting backstage talking about his Uncle Willie fighting a war in Japan. It doesn't mean anything, but you watch it and it does. I'm not going to turn this into, this is like The Godfather Part 2, or this was like watching Technicolor for the first time. It wasn't. It was just a story, but it worked. And it's things like, it's just different, Bob. It's, how many I've said it before in this show, you could sit with a match report and just enter wrestler A, wrestler B, same report, half a dozen matches in the one show. It was different. It's not going to set the world on fire. It's cool to see something that's new. I've never seen anything like this in a wrestling ring before. It is a bit kind of, I don't know whether it's worrying or stimulating that we might see the old one-upsmanship, maybe see a three-way dance next month with Francine. We can but hope. But it's different and it's cool and it's fair play to them. They've done it. They had the balls to do it. Ironically, with more ovaries than balls, but I liked it.
Del, who am I supposed to hate in this angle?
That's another story.
Who am I supposed to like? Because it all kind of played out and I kind of went, Well, you were quote unquote pushing boundaries, fair enough. But what did it matter? Like,
you've got Kimona. She's cheating on Raven, cheating on Tommy. But then it's a girl. Does that mean it's better? It's this blurring of the line, and this company's pretty consistent with that. And it's sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. But you're in a match here where you've got Raven's the champion, so he's the good guy, so he's got the gold. But then he's the bad guy because he's like alternative and quiet and brooding. And
we spent the first 3 months of this year with Tommy Dreamer's modus operandi being protect my woman, protect my baby at all costs. We come to this show, Shane Douglas says Beulah was never pregnant, and Tommy Dreamer doesn't seem to give a fuck one bit.
Yeah,
that's the thing, like...
Aye, is Shane the bad guy for bringing this out, or is Shane the good guy because he's brought the truth? That's a good thing, but then Tommy doesn't react to it, and then he just takes... I mean, Beulah's having it away with Shane Douglas. Does he go to the back with Shane Douglas and they have a triple dance in the locker room? I don't think so, but then he wants to kill Raven, but Raven's sat in the corner. He could quite easily go over there and kick the living shit out of him, doesn't he? He doesn't kind of harass Beulah in any way for lying to him for these months on end. It's very, very confusing if you get into that, but wrestling logic, Bob, wrestling logic.
I suppose. We move on to the main event. It's Shane Douglas against Raven. Shane Douglas. Yeah, no, Commander gone, but it's fine. Shane Douglas versus Raven with Stevie Richards and the Blue Mini for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. Raven still doesn't look 100%. Fans rag on Richards' headgear. Raven runs into a Douglas knee. Fans start chanting, Stevie swallows. Douglas shoves Raven into the guardrail before hitting a flip dive to the outside and whipping Raven hard into the rail and then again. We get an exchange of sleeper holds. Raven jumps on Douglas' shoulders, but Douglas runs into the ropes and sends Raven crashing over the top to the floor. Douglas throws himself off the top onto Raven and the fans. He then hits him with a walking stick. We get into the bleachers. Douglas goes after Raven with a cheese grater. We're now by the Eagle's Nest. They actually go outside. There's no camera to follow them, so Styles just starts inventing things he thinks is happening. Back in the ring, Douglas pile drives Raven. Brian Lee tries to get involved. Dreamer deals with him. Douglas hits a belly-to-belly and Raven kicks out after the ref is distracted by the brawl. Back comes Dreamer. Douglas belly-to-bellies him. Dreamer and Douglas start brawling. A load of people are brawling to the back. Joey Styles takes great pride in it being one fall to a positive finish. He does say it. There we go.
Positive finish, Bob.
Before ripping on Nitro. Raven almost takes it with a roll-up. Douglas kicks out and drops Raven off the top rope. Raven blocks a super kick and hits an axe handle off the top. He then puts Douglas on the top. Douglas blocks a super kick and throws him off. Douglas hits a high crossbody, but Raven rolls through and almost takes it. Douglas locks in the figure four. Meanie gets to the top, goes for a moonsault. Douglas moves out of the way, but has to release the hold. Richards then levels Douglas with a Stevie kick, but Douglas kicks out. Remember when this wasn't Nitro, Joey? Douglas hits a DVT on Raven, but Raven kicks out. Douglas locks in a figure four, one of the Bruise Brothers. Douglas deals with the Harris brother, but Raven hits Douglas with a boot and retains the title. Remember, Joey, this isn't like Nitro at all. Del.
It's, I think we're back to the same old again. We've had the different story, we've had the angle at the start of the match. We've had the Sabu Rob Van Dam match, but then it was a bit of a damp squib at the end. Can't help but feel the crowd were a wee bit trained out with the Sabu Rob Van Dam match. The story was maybe a wee bit much, but then when you end it with a guy that's clearly in pain, and then I don't know, it was. They talk about the art of a good promo for it goes for a 4 to a 9, then it drops down to a 2 at the end. It's like. I don't know, it's the best thing about Sabu Van Dam for me was the crescendo. This just didn't end the show with any kind of fire for me.
Kieran?
Yeah, my notes is basically similar to what, it's funny that Dale said that, because it is, where's the exclamation mark? We've gone from one match which was one big exclamation mark, and then there's this, and I thought, alright, I'll give him benefit of the doubt, it's for the belt. Let's sort of have them meander around outside, let's have another arena-wide brawl. And I'm thinking, all the time I'm thinking, well, they've got plenty of time left. This match is obviously going to go, I think it went sort of 15 odd minutes. So I'm thinking there's going to be some sort of payoff at the end, but there was nothing. So in the end, what are we left with, Bob? We're left with an arena-wide brawl that we've had all night, yet this one happened to be for a belt. And what's even worse, it's your most important belt, and you can't even be bothered to have anything meaningful happen at the end. Not send them home happy, it's sort of just send them home after watching another brawl. So, again, I was just pretty bored.
Yeah, it comes back to, did it matter? Like, did any of the action matter? Did any of the interference matter? Were there any repercussions for the interference? Isn't wrestling storytelling 101 with heels and baby faces that if you go on a run of heels winning a series of matches, eventually you go, right, we're gonna make sure there's no interference in this case, so that the good guy, in this case Douglas of all people, can get a fair shot at the title. And yet in ECW they're not doing that. In ECW it's acceptable for Raven to protect the championship just by having a load of cronies. And this is their big title, and it's like there's no consequences here. And then I've got Joey Styles on commentary, one fucking making up shit when they go outside, like he knows what's going on.
Yeah, that really pissed me off.
Like, and then ragging on Nitro. Like, I remember when Shane Douglas ragged on WCW, it felt like he was making points that made sense. Now Joey Styles is just taking pots at WCW when, if anything, they're doing stuff that's as bad, if not worse, in terms of continuity, in terms of storytelling, in terms of credibility. Imagine ripping on Nitro when you pulled out basically like every combination of every Nitro match finish you could imagine. Imagine doing that and thinking, yeah, this is going to work. And the match wasn't very good. It was another arena-wide brawl. Douglas is trying, but I don't know whether it's just because Douglas is wrestling Raven, who I don't get the feeling even a fully fit Raven is the greatest worker in the world. But maybe Douglas thinks, shit, I'm wrestling Raven who's at about 60%. I've got to pull out some stops here to make this match be anything more than mediocre. But it doesn't fit Douglas to be throwing himself around because it's not getting the job done. And while it's not getting the job done, stop doing it, Shane. Stick to your strengths. But it's just, Del, none of it mattered. That's kind of what I kind of felt like. None of it mattered.
It just gets back to it again. I mean, we've said it how many times, the finishes don't matter. This is in a position where the world title seemingly didn't matter. You can't really say much more. That is all wrestling is. You want stuff to matter. It's like when we spoke earlier on about the kind of pan, like just the absolute labyrinth of kind of talking about shoot fights in a wrestling show. It's like you want things to mean something and to actually mean the right things, and it's just like, I don't know. It's Shane Douglas, I'm a great fan. I think the Raven character's really good. There is the obvious kind of questions that you raise about in-ring quality. We've even said it before. Douglas is proficient. I would never really go much above that. When you put him in a ring where it's a guy that's pretty much got 1 foot, it is just come back to matter, and you want titles to mean something, you want results to mean something, you want feuds to mean something. And we've just witnessed a show that never really done anything apart from the couple of standout moments, whether it's just seeing a lesbian angle in wrestling for the first time, whether it's seeing an amazing athletic contest between two potential superstars of the future. Apart from that, just paint by numbers for me.
What is it going to take to defeat Raven and all those goons behind him? beating a man that Shawn Michaels was too much to get in the ring with. That is the only belt that means anything to me. Those people up there, those people, every single person in this building that's hardcore knows that I eat, drink, sleep, and breathe the ECW World Heavyweight title. There's no other belt that means in this entire world, Zoe Styles. Tonight was to be my night. Zoe Styles, I'm not crying over spilled milk.
Let me tell you something. We come out here running off the mouth, talking about the heavyweight belt. That's all I want. No another belt don't mean nothing to me. Well, let me tell you something. This TV title, World TV title, means more to me than any other belt. Now, I don't give a damn what you think, but I worked hard in the ECW to make this belt what it is. So let me tell you something, little punk. The Eddie Guerreros, the Dimalicos, all wanted this belt. But Too Cold is the man that holds it. So I'm going to tell you like this, Shane. If you want it, you can come and get it. Because I'm telling you right now, I have a belt. You don't have a belt. And if you want it, you can come and get it.
The belt means nothing to me. I'm about the world's heavyweight title, my friend. You may be a great television champion in the tradition of the Malenko Guerreros and all the rest of them. I don't want your belt.
And then we speak about it not mattering, and we get to this post-match angle. After the match, Douglas gets some time to speak. What is it going to take to defeat Raven and all of those goons? Douglas takes a shot at Shawn Michaels, then says tonight was supposed to be his night. Out comes Too Cold Scorpio. Scorpio says he worked to make the TV title what it is today. Did he? Well, I suppose he did, but I don't know what the TV title is today. Anyway, Douglas says he doesn't want the belt before blindsiding Scorpio with an attack. Sandman comes out and eats a belly-to-belly. Douglas takes a cane and starts caning Scorpio. Sandman jumps in on top of Scorpio to protect him, but Sandman takes a few shots of his own before Douglas pile drives Scorpio on top of the belt. Kieran, I guess the actual post-match angle perhaps wasn't so bad. I think my biggest qualm is what the post-match angle was signifying, which was we're not going to get Shane Douglas in a fair fight with Raven. We've done Shane Douglas versus Raven and headlining a few shows. We don't want to take the title off of Raven, so we're just going to move Douglas into another program. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's going to play differently. But that's what it felt like to me, and that, to me, is probably my biggest problem with everything on this show, was that if you're going to have Douglas for a few months chasing Raven for the title, getting screwed out of every opportunity, it makes no fucking sense in the world for him to just move on to Too Cold Scorpio.
Because everything that happened in that match, you would think, well, it's obviously that they're going to carry on, and then this happened. I'm like, so Tommy Dreamer and Raven get how long to fight each other? Then we get somebody who's a bit different, like Shane Douglas, who isn't your typical quote-unquote, sort of ECW guy. He's something a bit different to sort of a Dreamer. But then he's a one and done against Raven, and now he's going after this belt. And I was like, okay, but just bizarre. It came out. Did not expect this at all. I honestly thought we were going to get, sort of Raven and Douglas for at least a few more months.
Dal?
Just comes back to the same three words, Bob. Did it matter? Again, you can see the meaning behind it, and I mean, God love them for trying to send out Scorpio there and build up this TV title, but when it's coming in the back of a world title defence that just kind of peters out, I would be more worried about the world title not being over instead of trying to build up the TV.
And the world title's never been over. Really? I mean,
what's the biggest point of the world title in ECW?
Probably
the minute where it came into inception.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was it. Ever since
sorry, Del.
No, go on, Kieran, what's the question?
They hardly, just think about it, they hardly really ever reference the belt as, again, does it mean anything? The belt should mean something, but it's hardly ever referenced.
And it never really feels like anyone's on a journey towards the belt. You never really get the feeling that, like, there's guys working their way up. Scorpio talks about the TV title. It's like, but I watched that and thought, but Scorpio, you've held the TV title for so long, 4 times as well as that. Why don't you want the shot at the world title? Surely the world champion in ECW, lineage, whatever, in the ECW world, surely the world title means more prestige and more money, doesn't it? Del?
Yeah. And again, did it matter? I always hark back when it's talking about a TV title, the one that jumps out to me is, Stunning Steve in kind of 91, 92 in WCW, where it's like, it's with the commentary team as you turn on your TV, WCW is on, you see Steve Austin, he is the champion of the TV. He's going to be the guy that you see, he's going to be the guy that's the worker. A TV title is essentially what the Intercontinental means in WWF, and it's the worker belt. It's the belt that you're going to see a Savage in a Steamboat way. It's the belt that you're going to see, listen, this is who we're earmarking for the future. And it does mean something, but they kind of it's almost as if they've got too many eggs in too many baskets. And they just, I don't know, as you say, you want to see a journey, whether it's I
was just trying to think, Mikey Whipwreck's the last time I saw somebody like trying to work his way up. And like I said, I actually got behind Mikey because of that. And again,
because he was on a journey and it meant something, and he was trying to achieve something. He was fighting against the world. He was the underdog. He was the wee boy that used to do the moonsaults before he strapped in the ring after the lights went down. He was somebody that built himself up, and it's the same as you want to see with a TV champion. And as you say, Bob, but does it mean anything when he's had that many times and for that long that he just wants to cement his legacy as that belt? I mean, that belt shouldn't define him. He should be putting his name into the legacy to define that belt. And when you're going to throw out names like Terry Funk, and as you say, what does the world title then mean if Douglas is just going to focus on that? What does that then mean for Raven and Tommy Dreamer? It's just, there's too many. It's almost as if it's kind of running around in circles, the booking. Whether it's the gangsters and the eliminators right at the top of the show having the one-upsmanship with the 2 brawls, and then it disappears. It's the Tommy Raven feud where it kind of simmers along for 18 months, kind of goes off the boil, still simmers away and doesn't show any signs of coming to a boiling point again. It's Shane Douglas in his quest to get the world title. He gets one shot, he doesn't do it, and then he just moves on to a lesser belt. It's just make us believe it, make us feel something,
just make us give a shit. Just make us give a shit.
Basically. And that's all we need. And it's just, this has been again, same as you, Bob, I wasn't coming into this as an overly bad show. I wouldn't say it was brilliant, but just the more we went on, it's like, just give us a reason to care. That's all we need, is give us a reason to care, a reason to buy next month's tape, a reason to go back to the arena, a reason to come out the show and think, fuck it, I'm going to buy a t-shirt because I want this company to have money and I want to see them on a bigger stage with bigger lights and bigger cameras and bigger TV audiences. They just need to make us care.
I'd like to formally apologise for being so negative on this entire show because I feel like someone would listen to this review and then watch the show and go, well, it may not have been great. Yeah. I feel like you watch that show and you go, they just, this may end up being the longest show we've ever done. We haven't finished yet. We're getting there. And there are some good things on this show, even outside of Sabu and Rob Van Dam. But I think it's more, when you watch the amount of shows, Kieran's done a fair number of ECW shows now. Del, you've been on it, most of the time the last 18 months.
Well.
And I've watched every ECW show, TV, and certainly since we've been doing these formal kind of live event reviews for as long as I can remember. When you look at it like that, I think a lot of the stuff that might be seen as negatives to new people to us are just there. Positives to new people just to us is there. Like the brawling, it's just there. Like, but I think it's more that when the halcyon days of ECW, when we talk about the best bits of ECW, I don't know where it is in the list, but I'd be willing to bet that the brawling isn't in the top 5. And honestly, I'd be willing to bet the in-ring action isn't necessarily first. I think, you might put in-ring action third behind promos and the strength of their storytelling. And this month, they were wide of the mark on all 3 of those things. All 3 of them fell way down, with the exception of Rob Van Dam and Sabu. All 3 of them fell way down. We end on a slightly positive note, which is, as much as I said earlier about Sandman coming to Tommy Dreamer's aid, perhaps didn't make sense. Dal, I quite like Sandman jumping to the aid of Too Cold Scorpio. They need to explain that properly, but I will give them time to do that. I like that they're evolving the Sandman character into some, Too Cold Scorpio is a guy that's had his back for a while, so it made a lot of sense, but I like that they're showing us Sandman has a heart. It's
an interesting angle, and especially when you've got the in-ring spectaculars of a Jim Fullington. It's very, very easy to kind of just dismiss him as a drunkard, as somebody that smokes, as a womanizer, whether it's women or Missy High, he's out there where he's just an entrance, he's just a theme song. But it's these kind of things where you see, ECW, as we came to know it, did just come out of the ashes of a phoenix rising, and you kind of get where we've just kind of trawled the depths of the just misery for the last couple of hours, and there is positives, whether it's a Sabu Rob Van Dam match, whether it's a lesbian angle that just kind of breaks down a barrier that's going to be coming in the next few years, and a kind of more modern, kind of well-received, wider spectacle, I would like to think, because things like this do make a difference to mainstream society. And we do get negative sometimes, but it just shows that we do care, and we do give a shit, to say what Kieran said earlier. We want a reason to believe in it, and whether it's just showing a different side to a character, like a Sandman, whether it's kind of just finding the X factor that ECW used to have, because as we hark back to earlier on with the roster for last year, when you lose guys, it does make a difference. You're not going to have that mid-card show stealer. You're not going to have a Cactus promo or a Douglas promo. You're not going to have a story like a Singapore Kane match for the first time, or even like, it's just, you need to have these lulls. It's like a good show. You can't go out and have 6 Sabu Van Dam matches in a card, because the crowd's going to pay attention to the first 1.5 and then get overexposed to it. And you want to just have these kind of peaks and troughs, because we know that the next peak is going to come. And it has been a bit of a dark month for the show. It's been a pretty lackluster show. There's not been any discernible promos that I would really pick out, apart from obviously New Jack. Apart from that, there's not been much. You get the odd nugget with a New Jack promo, or a Sabu match, or a story. It's just, I think we've almost spoiled ourselves with what we have seen in the last couple of years, where you get these dark points, and we know that we're going to get out the other side of it. It's just, we really want them to do it, because it is the company it's the little engine that could, and we want to make sure that they get there, and we just know that they can do better, I think, is the biggest point, Bob.
I might get Craig, Rory and Chris to tape we've never seen ECW before review of this show, just to give people something different. Kieran, your overall thoughts on this show and a score rating out of 10?
Alright, okay. So, I like the beginning and start, and I like the New Jack. I love the gangsters. I like the interplay with the Eliminators. I like that. The Van Dam match was like 10 out of 10. There's not much else. A lot of it was just too much of the same old. I fully expect them to pull it round. I don't sort of expect the same thing next month, but if you're asking me to score this show, well, I'm going to have to go with... I'm going to have to go for a 4 out of 10.
Del?
With a few notable exceptions, I'd say the overall show was a 3, but with the New Jack stuff, with the Sabu Van Dam match, I would feel harsh if I was giving it any less than a 5. I'm going to give it a 5 overall. I think that the full show was a 3, if I'm honest about it, but there is positives here. There's good characters, there's potential for new stories, there's existing feuds that, if I'm being honest, do need to come to a crescendo in the near future. You've got Taz out there with Fonzie as a good team. I'm going to give it an overall 5, if not for the Sabu Van Dam match, then just for JT Smith being on the show.
Yeah, we've never been as negative on a show before on this show, and yet I'm with you, Del, in giving it a 5. I think we're negative on this show for 2 reasons. One, because there's a lot to be negative about, and giving it 4s and 5s is down to, one, an outstanding Rob Van Dam Sabu match, which, you know, any show with that match on cannot be that bad. 2, in that at times they were threatening to tell some really good stories. At times they threatened to tell something good with the Gangsters, the Eliminators. At times they threatened to tell something good with Sandman. And as an individual show, and to an extent, you know, we never say WrestleMania 10 was a 9 out of 10 show, therefore I'm going to give King of the Ring an 8 out of 10 just because it came off the back of what came before. We never rate a show based on what came before. We've largely been negative on this show because of what has come before and what it says about their storytelling and what it says going forward. This in itself is not a horrendous show. We've been negative on it for 2 reasons. One, because there are some fault lines appearing. And they need to be patched up. I think the biggest thing about all of this is that we review WCW shows and we're willing to overlook a lot of negatives just because it's WCW and because making a note of it really doesn't matter. There's no point in complaining about the over the top rope rule anymore. It's just part of the furniture. Don't get yourself worked up about it. With ECW, we hold them to a higher standard. We expect more. We've been delivered more in the past. So when it doesn't come off and when they get things as wrong as they have done on parts of this show, we feel that there's a more emotive reaction because you feel like ECW delivers more. There's also a more emotive reaction because Joey Styles is sat on commentary fucking ribbing WCW while his promotion are putting on a product that has every bit the same faults WCW has. This ain't a bad show, but there are a lot of bad signs coming out of this show. And that's why I think we've been so down on it. And also because we care. As I say, next month I might bring on 2 guys that have never seen it before. We'll review the same level of show and they'll fucking love it.
Oh yeah, we're sacked. We're sacked now.
Maybe.
That sounds, mate, too negative.
Maybe. Anyway, we will move on with the rest of the TV for the month. Okay, a couple of technical issues. We've lost Kieran for the rest of the show unless we can get him back on, but fortunately not a lot to discuss. We start on Hardcore TV on April 23rd with a nice recap montage showing us some of the chapters in the Dreamin' and Raver storyline. Joey Styles praises the quality of the action from Hostile City Showdown. Thank you, Joey. And after a rerun of Supernova versus Britannia and a subsequent brawl, we join Little Guido and JT Smith at a late night diner. Guido is moaning about a cheese steak. Smith says he's disrespecting the establishment. Apparently that counts as character development. I suppose it does. After the Dreamer and Brian Lee match, see a brief musical montage. Steve Richards and the Blue Mini are dicking about by the lift. The lift opens and out comes Cactus Jack. He asks for Titan Towers. Richards says it's on the 8th floor. Cactus gets back in the lift and disappears. I guess the idea being that there was no way we could let Cactus Jack sign off with such a soppy segment. We end the show with Douglas, Dreamer, Kimono and Beulah segment where we do it until it cuts off at the appropriate moment. Fortunately, if you're watching all of this back, you can go straight onto the following start of the next show and see how that played out. We then see Douglas and Raven from Hostile City Showdown. Styles says Douglas received a scratched cornea wrestling Rob Van Dam the night before, although Styles says that it may not have been accidental. He then says that you'll be able to see the Van Dam and Sabu match on next week's show. So you listen to this after May the 6th, I would go out of my way to see it. New Jack and Mustafa cut a promo in the streets. New Jack says they need to bring the belts next time, and he says next time they're driving, they're going to end up in the hood. And when they do, he's going to drag them out of their cars. He then says this is violence for the sake of violence. I'm not quite sure about the logic of them automatically ending up driving into the hood. There we go. We join Saturn and Cronus in their locker room. Saturn takes out the title belt and finds it has an X spray painted across the front. He says anytime, any place, sorry. Joey Styles invites Brian Pillman to return to Hardcore TV once he's recovering to update us on his status. We rewatch Taz versus Dangerous Devon Storm before finishing on the usual musical montage. Tommy says Raven hasn't got any pussy anymore. Holding up a cat while he does it. Blue Meanie and Richards imitate Diesel and Shawn Michaels. We join New Jack and Mustafa leaving the building. They get blindsided. Then Saturn and Cronus paint X's across their backs and leave them laying. Del, very quick thoughts at the end of the show. I felt they've swung and missed a couple of times with New Jack and Mustafa and the Eliminators. This was a big hit, I think.
Totally. It feels real. It feels as if there's a bit of passion in there. We got a bit passionate, but maybe in a bit of a negative way. You could possibly argue with that Hostile City Showdown takeover, but this is what we want for wrestling. We want fucking and bitch ass from shit, and New Jack just going mental. The fans have took to him. They've really turned a corner, and it's went into legit storytelling as well with the Eliminators. They've got a move that's over. They've got two tag teams that have got that dynamic, as you said earlier on, with the one talker and the one doer. The two of them just play off each other really well. The nice wee touches with the tags, and it just works, and it's something that I think they can definitely get their teeth into, and it's working.
Yeah, they've tried a lot with this stuff. They're really trying to make this program stand out more than your average tag team stuff. This was storytelling that was nuanced enough where they achieved that. And in a month where I don't think they've hit many tick many boxes this month in terms of storytelling, they got one right. And that will bring to an end this month's show. Yes, firstly, we did tape this end of this show, and then I got offline and couldn't find it in my system. It wasn't there. But we unfortunately, it was only about the last 7 or 8 minutes. That's fine. Kieran, was with us, but, haven't been able to relocate him since the end of that bit. You can find him on Twitter at JotenThrash666. A big thank you to him during this month's show. Del, this show wasn't meant to be this negative. I don't know quite what happened.
It was meant to be this negative, but as you say, we've alluded to it throughout the show. It just shows that we care. There's positives in this shit if you want to look hard enough to find them. It's not been a stellar month. Dare I say, we might have another couple of black spots in the future, but we do love this, and we want it to be better. We know they can do better, and we just want to urge them on. So,
Del,
I believe in it.
You can be found on Twitter.
I can, Bob. It's Del_Muir.
Excellent. Big thank you to Del for joining me this month. 2 other volumes this month. Volume 1, In Your House 7, WWF stuff. A lot of interesting look. We look at Bret Hart's interview from Raw. Talk about Cactus Jack, the debut of Mankind on Raw, along with quite possibly the best WWF match we've covered in Shawn Michaels versus Diesel. Volume 2 is your WCW action. No pay-per-view this month. But we do get to instead take a closer look at each of the individual Nitros. And this has been Volume 3. I did not expect us to go this long, but there we go. That's what happens when I bring Del and Kieran on. I should know better by now. You can find me on Twitter at Bamber. You can find all of the information you need on the website. The website these days, if you've heard me plug the website before, maybe visited, gone, there's not a lot here. There's a lot there now. There's a lot of content. It's structured a little bit better. There's also all of our back episodes now. We've done 71, I think. So if you're just joining the show new and you want to go back and hear some of the earlier, kind of less I don't want to say polished. I don't even know this show is polished even at this stage, but less polished even than now shows. You can find us on there. You can find links to RSS subscriptions if you want to upload us into your podcasting app. You can also find our iTunes link. If you are on iTunes, do leave us a rating and a review. Those things always help. My voice was going when we recorded this ending the first time, so it's very croaky now. I hope this saves. I've been Bob Bamber. This has been the ECW edition of the April 1996 Wrestling 20 Years Ago podcast. And until next time, goodbye.